With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Every time Long Beach comes along in the Precision Racing League, we're guaranteed to see some pretty crazy things. In F3 last season, Alex AFF Fournier won after passing an out-of-fuel Michael Coffray into the final corner. In the GT3 Sprint Series 2 seasons ago, Vincent Trepanier won Long Beach after pulling off a zero stop in a series that always requires a pit stop. What pandemonium could possibly await us tonight? For the longest time. It's been a very long time, and we're finally back in Long Beach. Welcome to round 7 of the PRL GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint Series, live from the virtual Long Beach Street Circuit. Hi everybody, Joey Tebben here alongside Ewan O'Leary with producer Hugo Luis behind the scenes. Ewan, if you couldn't tell, I'm very excited. We're back at Long Beach, one of my personal favorite tracks in the world, and a track that always puts on an exciting race in the PRL.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. I can't say I enjoy driving it, I've got to be honest, but I do enjoy watching races around here because, as you just mentioned, they do always provide some interesting racing, some things that wouldn't normally happen at normal race circuits because, quite frankly, this isn't the normal race circuit. And we see some peculiar things from time to time, and that's exactly what we're here for. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's a beautiful circuit as well, by the way. Yeah, who knows what is going to happen here. I think most of the challenge is just going to be getting through the opening lap, which is going to be complete chaos with the amount of GT3s we have season to season in the PRL, unlike at some other circuits on this calendar. But after that, we should see some good racing as well.
Indeed, the season has absolutely flown by. There's only 3 rounds to go because we did start the season a little bit early. We will have a break after our Brazilian trip to Interlagos because February 14th is coming up. That is Valentine's Day for those who didn't remember. So we've got a week off on that week. Then we return February 21st for Road America. And then the very last day of February, we end off the season at Okayama. 3 fairly different tracks to end the season after our one trip to the Long Beach Street Circuit, our one street circuit of the season. Those first 6 rounds, though, it's been a very diverse season. Some new tracks, some Grade 1 style tracks, and of course Daytona last week. And that means that the championship standings are slightly shaken up. Of course, it's not shaken up at the top. Michael Terrafino, your defending champion, has been absolutely in control. He holds about a 23-point gap over Michael Pabiano. But in recent times, especially in practice today, the likes of Aero Urexoy, the likes of Michael Pabiano, Angelo Veloz, even Rob Deloach, Colin McKenzie, they've been turning things up. They've been creeping up. They've been biting away at that Michael Terrafino lead, and this is definitely not a foregone conclusion. This championship is not yet won for Michael Terrafino. Still plenty of points on the board here in the next 4 rounds. The team's championship, I believe, is a little bit closer. Actually, no, it's not. It's twice as distant, because Vulture Motorsports South, they may not lead the Drivers' Championship with one of their drivers, but they have been very consistent, while Team Beef has been slightly less consistent. Terrafino's been getting a lot of points, but None of the other drivers for Team Beef really have. That's why they're actually tied with the second Vulture Motorsports team for second. And Lunatic Moonlight Speed, they're only 4 points behind. It's a very tight fight for second. We Race Esports and Forge Racing Gold are going to fight over 5th place. Then there's a little bit of a step down to YS Motorsports and SG Esports. And the other Forge Racing squad, the Blue Team and Throttle Thursday, they're separated by a smattering of points for P9. Qualifying has just ticked over here at the Long Beach Street Circuit. But before we can get into anything, we have to thank all the people who make all of this possible. Of course, first and foremost, it is the VCO powering these broadcasts and helping us out here at RaceSpotTV. The virtual competition organization helps make every single Precision Racing League broadcast possible this season and every season. This coverage is also brought to you by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. This coverage is also brought to you in part by Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision 5 coupon code. Then from Racebox, we slide over to RaceLab. RaceLab Apps helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also, the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game, feel every nuance, and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. And new for this season, they're still new for this season, it's Mecha Sim Hardware. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed and check them out. And last but always not least, it's NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Of course you are. Sporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. As the helicopter circles the beautiful coast of California at Long Beach, we are underway in qualifying right now. The guy who topped practice, currently topping qualifying, only the first laps on the board right now, but Aero Urexoi off to a great start.
Yeah, certainly is. Didn't have a great time at Daytona, I've got to be honest. DNF the race, unfortunately, and did slip back a little bit in points, losing about 20 overall to Michael Terrafino as a result. So he does need a bit of a result, really, with only 4 rounds to go. But this is exactly the place to do it. Top of qualifying right now, and was top of practice as well, by the way. Fastest in practice through that session as well. So this is as good a time as any to get his season back on track for Aero Urexoi. And can't currently see our championship leader, Michael Terrafino, really... well, anyway, I can see him down in 12th at the moment, but he'll need to move up a bit from there. He's right in the danger zone there.
Yeah, he was very un-Michael Terrafino-like in practice as well. Didn't have a very good best time. Still sits P12. You just saw Rob Campbell, by the way, go up to P1, so he's knocked Aero Urexoi off that top spot. Steven Martinez trying to improve from P4 here. Looked to be a little bit wide through the hairpin. Not sure if he's setting up a second lap here. He's going to bring it to the line. He's not going to improve, but potentially that was a little bit of a setup out of the hairpin. He might be going for this lap instead.
Yeah, it's very important hairpin. Actually, it's a place you can gain a lot of time, actually, by running really, because it's so wide. You can run really, really wide and get a great run to the front straight. You can gain a little bit of time there. It gives us a great opportunity to have a bit of a chance on board with Steven Martinez right now to see quite how challenging this Long Beach circuit is. Just threading this needle through the streets of California. It's quite amazing, really. Just a sort of stop and start circuit where you're trying to get as close to the walls as possible, cut that apex as much as possible, run it out as wide as possible, and you really are threading the needle through here as well with the right-hander. It's quite high speed where you're close to the walls on the right and left-hand side. You can't deny that it's a challenge, even though I did say earlier it's not that enjoyable to drive, and I do maintain that, but it is a challenge, there's no doubt about that.
Skill issue.
There might be a skill issue, yes.
There's a skill issue with me too, but I kind of enjoy the skill issue. It's a very difficult track, but I personally enjoy it, except when I am turning in too early to turn 5 and clipping the inside wall. But other than that, I always have a good time at Long Beach. Matty Scherf up to the top of the timesheets as Steven Martinez brings it to the line. No improvement for Martinez, but big improvement for Scherf. He's on pole. Big improvement for Dino Vella as well, up into the top 5.
Yeah, real big improvements, especially for Scherf there, to get a couple of attempts clear of Urexoy. A little bit clear of this man here, Rob Campbell, who's only, 600ths away right now, just under. So it's going to be close here. We'll see what Campbell can produce here in the final sector of this lap. See if he can just string it all together. Very much going all out on this one. Since the lines he's taking, he's definitely not setting himself up for one last gasp in the next lap. This is laying it all out here in this lap right now, with still 3.5 minutes to go. Not a long lap, of course. Let's see over the line. Oh, he can't improve. Wasn't even faster than Urexoy's fastest lap time there, so Campbell's going to need one more to get anywhere near Scherf, which is looking more and more unlikely with every passing moment, really.
Campbell's got to find 60 thousandths of a second. Aero Urexoy has to find about 200 thousandths of a second. 2 whole tenths is what Urexoy needs, but there's clearly still time out on track. Track conditions are pretty good. Unfortunately, the condition of Aero Urexoy's rear tires, not quite so good. Loops it around at turn 9. That's definitely easy to do. Get in the throttle too early, get a little bit unsettled. And Aero Urexoy, he might have time to go out for one more lap.
I think he's going to struggle. You've got a limit, of course, on the amount of laps that you can take as well, of course, and the time limit as well is going to push him, I think. So I think he's going to struggle to get out there again and set another lap time. But either way, he's on the first 2 rows, and I think he can be pretty pleased with that, as Veloso is not improving there. He's in front of, Terrafino, Veloso and Paviano as well, so I think Aero actually can be pretty pleased with his qualifying nevertheless, despite the fact he hasn't quite gotten pole, which he might have felt like he could have got.
And Terrafino, by the way, up into the top 5 now. If you missed that, he's not going to start 12th, so he's kind of out of the danger zone, still lower than he would like. Here comes Rob Campbell to the line, though, and again, it's exactly the same time, pretty much, that he said on that last lap of 1:19.36. Rob Campbell, also not going to be too disappointed with starting on the outside of the front row, but starting on pole at Long Beach is very important, especially with the sort of interesting start procedure we're going to be doing here. I've been hearing that they're going to try and go single file through the hairpin on lap 1, just to make sure we don't get any kerfuffles, just to make sure we don't get any pileups before the race even starts. So Matt Scherf's going to be in a pretty comfortable position on pole, leading the entire field single file out of the hairpin on lap 1. Yeah,
it's a nice place to be, but obviously you've got to work pretty hard to get there, so he's done a good job so far, but has got to execute now from the front row, you'd imagine so. And I think with all the championship contenders on the first 3 rows, they should all be okay. Well, the top 3 in the championship, I'm not counting anyone out, but they're the top 3 in the championship are on the first 3 rows, and I think they should be okay from that point, but I am slightly fearing what chaos we could see behind, because there's not exactly a big spread of field, and there's 43 cars going to be bearing down into a really tight left-hander, and then the fountain section as well, of course. And I remember chaos in seasons past here in the PRL. I think we had it back a couple of seasons ago we did together, Joey, and it was a little bit chaos, so I'm hoping for a little bit smoother maybe this time.
Sully Saad bringing it smoothly to the line, but unfortunately bringing it smoothly to the line with 0.3 less than he had originally, a 1:20. That's going to end Sully Saad's run, and it looks like he's basically one of the last drivers on track. Buck Hamilton has waited until later on in the session. He might have a couple more laps in the tank here. Does he have any time in the tank, though? No, he does not. Still 0.4 slower. That's about it for qualifying. There's still a few other drivers getting extra practice, getting some extra conditioning at the street circuit, which, you can't blame them. As much track time as you could possibly get, it's going to help you once race time comes.
Certainly is. I don't think you could ever get enough practice around a circuit like this, or you could argue any circuit, really. So you might as well take it. But yeah, it's a really tightly spread field here. I guess the fixed series kind of produced that as well with the fixed setups and whatever, but the standard of the driving is really sort of close together. And we're set for a very good race. Let's just hope that it does provide for us. And as I mentioned, hopefully we get some cars through the opening left-hander cleanly.
First through 37th, separated by 1.7 seconds. That's how close this field is, and it's all headed by Mr. Matt Scherf on pole for the 2nd time this season, looking for his 2nd win of the season. Rob Campbell came up just short in qualifying. He's going to be aggressive on the opening laps, and Aero Urexoy topped practice. He's going to be disappointed with third, but Colin McKenzie starts alongside him, who's really turned things up in the past couple of weeks, and it's the Michael O show on row 3. We're used to seeing them on the front row. They'll start from 5th and 6th. Pabiano and championship leader Terrafino. Greg Doucette, great qualifying for the Throttle Thursday driver in 7th. Dino Vella for Forge Racing up in P8. Eric Kalaga, always representing the Ford, up into P9. And Steven Martinez, top Ferrari, I believe, in P10. Ahead of 2 more Ferraris, Angelo Veloz and Dale Peterson in the highlighter yellow Ferrari. Sully Saad, unlucky 13th, alongside Matt Dinsmore. Nicholas Carangis and Chris Yatito make up row 8. Aiden Irvin in the Italian Lamborghini starts alongside the lead Chandler, Regan Chandler, and the last 2 drivers in the top 20, Buck Hamilton and Mr. Jay Steffi. But the hits keep on coming. Phil Amaro, 21st for Britannia. Kevin Hansen, a new driver to the league, 22nd on debut. Alex Wright, 23rd, and Ryan Chandler, the second of the 2 Chandlers, in 24th. Rodrigo Morales and Felix Feliz, it's double Mercedes on row 13. Michael Kalaga, Mark File, Ryan Luna, and Jeff Fleischman bring us down to 30th. 31st, Baron Glover. 32nd, Rob Deloach, disappointing for him after a podium last week. Jordan Walker, Michel Plourde, Maurice Gomillion, and Drew DeWeese bring us down to 36th. Barry Cochran, Jason Loachridge, Frank Johnson, Waldo Walden, Glenn Vanko, Ryan Hoskins were the last drivers to set legitimate qualifying lap times. Andrew Venaro did set a lap time. He's not 7 seconds slower than the rest of the field, though. Andre Bonatti did not elect to qualify. I don't think he's going to start either. Lucio Vargas elected not to qualify. He will start the race. And Baron Hilton did not qualify, and he looks like he will not be starting the race. He's not made it to the grid. Could be a pit lane start from Baron Hilton. Could be a pit lane start from Andre Bonatti. I don't think so. But the iRacing sedan pace car is going to pull very far forward here. It's the Porsche pace car, by the way. It's going to pull off, and we go single file for the most part through the hairpin. Everybody trying to figure things out here with this start procedure. Michael Terrafino almost into the wall at the start of the green flag. It's a little bit of chaos at the back of the field, but Matt Scherf very thankfully has to worry about none of that. We're green at Long Beach, and there is a little bit of trouble in the background, but there's further worries up ahead because Aero Urexoy in the Audi already to the inside into turn 1. Urexoy goes for the lead.
Well, very late on the brakes. There certainly was chaos behind, but it's allowed these leaders to really fight it out between themselves with no worries of a pile-up, really. So that was good to see, but not good to see. A bit of a pile-up in the background into the hairpin. Very spread out field, though, and Aero Urexoy really taking advantage of it as well. 2 cars into 1 corner, and he'll be hoping he can take control of this race from here on in.
That was just an absolutely textbook start from Aero Urexoy. Started 3rd. You might think, you know, he's got to make 2 moves to get up into the lead, but what he did was basically the second the green flag came out, he was already alongside Rob Campbell. That allowed him to get to the inside of Matt Scherf, and suddenly Aero Urexoy finds himself on defense against a whole train of vehicles. You can see the whole field going all the way back, basically. 244th place with Lucio Vargas. Absolutely nothing separating them. Except Aero Urexoy, he's already trying to pull a full second gap on lap 1.
Well, yeah, there is nothing separating each car, I suppose, but first to last is already nearly half a minute at this stage, which is, you know, well over a third of a lap, nearly half a lap. So, you know, qualifying so important around here at Long Beach. Even outside the top 20, you're going to be quarter of a minute back. So, it is very, very important indeed to be right up there in qualifying. Otherwise, you're just going to find yourself mired in the pack, and that's something to remember in the second race as well.
Dale Peterson can never miss that highlighter yellow Ferrari. Peeks to the inside of Sully Saad. Not going to be able to do anything with it, though. Saad's going to hang on to the last spot in the top 12, but Dale Peterson showing the nose. That's what you have to do sometimes at Long Beach. It's a very difficult place to pass. It's not the easiest place in the world to make a pass, but if you can force the nose inside, if you can force somebody into a mistake, that might be how you make the move, as Sully Saad almost gets into the wall off of turn 5.
Yep, oh dear, we about to have a squeeze there as well. That was Dale Pedersen very nearly making his way down the inside for 12th place. These are the kind of things that happen at Long Beach. There's a little bit of rough and tumble from time to time, and bumping and barging. But then again, when you're making moves, you do have to do a bit of bumping and barging sometimes to make your way through as well. So could be a very physical race over the next half an hour, depending on quite how it evolves and depending on quite how impatient people get as well.
Greg Doucette around the outside of the hairpin on Michael Terrafino. An incredible move from Greg Doucette there. Later on the brakes, around the outside of the championship leader, Michael Terrafino got taken to school.
Yeah, and that's something you don't see very often. Not only Terrafino being overtaken, but at the hairpin as well. Really rare to see that. The turning circle, it seems to be, you know, well, it just is very, very difficult to get around that hairpin. And Terrafino finding that out right now, but just doesn't quite see it himself at this race. Just seems to be off the pace just that little bit.
That's kind of the first time we've really thought that this season. He had a challenger in Michael Pabiano at many races so far this season, but other than that, it has been last season's Michael Terrafino. It has been the guy who won that championship, who won 6 out of 10 races. But there's always a track that's not quite suited to a driver. There's always one track that scares the most scary driver in the field. I guess Michael Terrafino has his one nemesis, and that's Long Beach.
Yeah, certainly, and I guess when you've got a run of 3 straight race wins in a row, then that run's going to come to an end at some point, but just didn't expect him to go down quite like this. I'm not writing him off just yet, of course, but it's going to be difficult for him here. He does look like he's having a difficult day, really. So he's just got to limit the damage, really. This is what the championship contenders and this is what championship winners do. Limit your bad days as best as you possibly can. He's certainly maximised his best ones so far this season. We can't argue against that, but can he minimise a bad day here at Michael Terrafino? Right now, a comfortable top 10 here at Long Beach is absolutely minimising a bad day as best as he possibly can.
That would be a very Michael Terrafino thing. If we were writing him off, we were like, oh, he's having the worst race of his season, and he still somehow manages to turn around into a win. So I'm not counting that possibility out. There's still 30 minutes for anything to happen here. But we look a little bit deeper into the field to one of the many, many hornet's nests of cars in this field who have still found each other. It's a Ferrari and Lamborghini cloud here of Carangas, Irvin, Yatito, and a few others hopping onto the back of this train. It's a little bit like at Manicor a couple of weeks ago. Carangas, he's kind of like Jarno Trulli. He likes to form a train behind him. It's almost impossible to pass him, and you just find about half the field behind him. Yeah,
we really do have quite a lot of the field right behind him right now. Trying to find the end of the train, and it's impossible, really. Maybe 35th. It's a very long way down. They're just going to keep going around that corner in the background of this shot. But this is the problem with this circuit, really. None of the straights are really very long. And then the braking zones at the end of the longest straights aren't that long either. Into turn 1, of course, after the end of the longest straight, albeit a curved one. And turn 9 as well is even shorter of a braking zone. So it's really unhelpful for making a move. And then this kind of thing happens when everyone's in a train.
That is a traffic jam and a half. It's a street circuit, but that looked like a city street as Chris Yatito basically just had to park it to not get into the back of Aiden Irvin. And he almost put himself in danger from getting passed around the outside from Matt Dinsmore. That was truly a traffic stop.
Yeah, it's almost as if the normal daily life traffic never left there. Oh dear, as into the wall for the Ferrari. That's what happens when you just poke your nose down the inside. Just have a look, get into the mirrors. You get into the head of the driver in front of you. And unfortunately, that's going to be a retirement for Chris Yatito. That's a real shame for him. But it's exactly what happens when you get in the mirrors of the car in front.
It's a very expensive lawnmower for Chris Yatito there. He was doing a very, very good job on those flowers. Michael Terrafino, by the way, he's gotten back by Greg Doucette. You can see in the background, I think there was a little bit of a mistake from Greg Doucette. He opened the door, and Michael Terrafino in that big BMW that may not be suited to a street circuit like Long Beach, he's still going to put the ultimate pressure on, and Greg Doucette's not immune to that as Rob Campbell has gotten into trouble at the hairpin. He's hit the tire wall in the entry to the hairpin. How in the world has that happened?
Well, that is a really bizarre one. I wonder if he was looking to the outside of Max Sharef there to just go around the outside and set himself up for turn 1. Just get that better run off the hairpin into the first corner and found himself on the outside wall. Or was he just driving on his own? Oh, he lost it on his own.
Oh, lost it on his own. That's the most embarrassing place to lose it, I think, because there is that tire wall there. Ironically, it's for AAA insurance, and there's nothing you can do at that point. You just got to let about half the field go by until there's an opening and back up and live with your nose damage for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I don't know if you can call this insurance after that, but anyway. Just not quite like how I thought it had happened, actually, and not quite as clumsy either, but just lost it on his own, really. We'll see what he can do now in terms of a recovery, but his teammate Colin McKenzie has retaken his podium place as well, and he's trying to hold back Michael Papiano at the moment in that position. as well in this battle for third place. So yeah, at least it's keeping it within the team, I suppose. But Rob Campbell would prefer it was him.
We're through Rob Campbell corner here. Colin McKenzie survives it though, so we're all good. The Audi may be a little bit more planted than the Lamborghini. It's not two Lunatic Moonlight speed cars in the same wall, in the same space at 2 laps, so we're good for now.
Yes, good for now. But long way to
that's
go.
not good.
Dear me, this is a lot of suspension damage for Aidan Irvine. He's not getting round here. No chance.
That is a crab and a half there for Aidan Irvine. I think Nicholas Caran just get a little bit out of shape out of the hairpin a couple of laps ago, but that's more than a little bit out of shape. That is a clonk into a concrete wall, and Lamborghinis and concrete walls, they don't like each other too much.
Well, that's some of the biggest suspension damage I've seen for a while there. That was really severe. Well, maybe it's more exaggerated just because of that hairpin there and the fact that he couldn't get around it anymore, but goodness me, that was a big hit on the wall and paid a fairly big price as well. But I guess, you know, even with, well, any of these positions really, you can't ever say that it's done until the checkered flag, because the walls that are very much here to collect you at Long Beach if you're, ever going to make a slight mistake. So we can never write this race off until the very, very end because of the walls and because of what we just seen.
Angelo Veloz, a race winner this season a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately for him, sits in another one of our trains, and this time it's a Ford train. It's a real American train led by a Ford GT3 car. There's a Ferrari of Dino Vella, or a Ferrari of Steven Martinez rather, behind Kalaga. Another Ferrari of Veloz, another Ferrari of Dale Peterson, Sully Sada and Audi, and Rob Campbell trying to recover after his mistake. Kalaga's gonna have to make that Ford pretty wide. It is a pretty wide car. It has a very wide rear end, but he's gonna have to make it even wider because he has about half the field joined up on him now.
Yeah, it's now his turn to be the cork in the bottle. And I said this a lot last week, of course, but absolutely love the Ford's inclusion in this series and the fact that it's still running inside the top 10 here with Kulaga 8th place right now. And he just, well, we're saying cork in the bottle, but ever since, he did get to the front of this group, he has started to just sort of open it out a little bit and stretch the group out. You see not as many cars coming around that corner in the background anymore as they were in the past. It was a real train before, but Kulaga seems to be stretching it out just that little bit making a real difference here. 8th place, and he's changing this group really, stretching it out a lot more.
Dino Vella might be seeing Fords in his mirrors before too soon, but Sully Saad thinks about it to the inside and puts the bumper to the back of Angelo Veloz there, under braking into turn 9. He was desperately trying to get onto the brakes. I don't think he did avoid the rear bumper of Veloz there. I think there was a little bit of contact. No harm, no foul. They got away with it, but Sully Saad, he's making it known that he can be pretty late in the brakes into turn 9.
Yeah, well, you certainly can. It is possible, but it's just a question of cooperation, I suppose, from the driver in front of you as well, in terms of giving you space on the entry there. And then you've got to return it, obviously, on the exit as well. But you've got to try it. At this circuit, you're not going to get many clear-cut chances. You've got to get in the mirrors of the car in front and hope they make a mistake, as we've seen once or twice in this race already.
Bad news for fans of Michel Plord. He's joined Aidan Irvine in the used car lot with heavy damage. Chris Yatito as well. We saw him out of the race. Frank Johnson got into some early trouble. He's out of the race. And Maurice Gomillion as well. So it's been a tough day for Forge Racing with a bunch of their drivers out. And as I say that, I see on my timing screen that Rob DeLoach and Jason Lotridge, they've both pulled down pit lane. I don't know if this is because of damage or if this is early pit stops kicking off already. But Rob DeLoach and Jason Lotridge, they're both down pit lane potentially to get out of traffic.
It's not a bad idea. The only worry I would have is staying from going a lap down, because then you're just in similar traffic really. There'll be traffic all over the circuit very soon, but Robert DeLoach looks like he has taken a scheduled pit stop there. It does look like a normal length of stop, and he has come out 20 seconds in his own clean air as well, so that could be a really good call from him. And if anyone around him maybe wants to take the same idea, or even in front or just a little bit behind, then it wouldn't be a bad idea at all really, because there's a lot to be gained in clean air here, looking at some of these groups right now.
It's about time, and this is what it looks like. It's the carousel of Zoom entertainment as Rodrigo Morales pulled down pit lane right ahead. We take a look at the number 41 of Ryan Chandler. The background clean and clear and crisp. he's got a new thing in front of him. I don't know what those mysterious white bars are, if that's a track IR or what, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I've got no conclusions there at all either. They don't seem to be doing anything useful. But maybe it's telling him where the central or where straight should be on the steering, if you see what I mean.
Maybe.
Where 0 degrees should be. That's the only thing I can think of. But other than that, I would see no reason for them at all. We'll have to ask him.
Well, you see, that's actually smart analysis, Ewan. I was thinking that they were 2 pieces of string cheese, and you could have a nice snack in the middle of the race.
Well, I do try, but no, I don't know. I find that unlikely myself, and I don't know personally. But you never know. I don't know what could possibly be going on there. We've seen more peculiar things this season from our webcam. So Ted Lowendick will be later on.
Oh, that's a preview and a half right there. If that hasn't sold you to stick around for GT3 Sprint, who knows what we're going to see on the Zooms there. But the pit cycle is basically kicking off now. Rob DeLoach kicked everything off a couple of laps ago, but Rodrigo Morales was in, Lucio Vargas was in, and Michael Pabiano, that's kind of the biggest name so far, out of the top 5. Michael Pabiano's down pit lane, Rob Campbell's down pit lane. Lots of drivers trying to get out of traffic here and trying to make their own races at a place where track position's pretty important.
Yeah, it is. And getting clean air as well, quite important through this pit stop cycle, but it's going to become more and more difficult to come by. Before this lap, 3 drivers had taken scheduled pit stops to get into clean air. Another 3 have just taken it on, including Michael Pabiano, so and Rob Campbell. So, you know, it's going to be harder and harder to come by. And soon enough, this whole track is going to be covered by cars of some description or another.
Just heard from Andrew in our chat. He said it was a 3D printed phone mount on Ryan Chandler's setup. So
with no phone on it, though.
There was no phone on it, but maybe he doesn't want to be distracted by the phone. Maybe that's for the endurance races, like last weekend. If he needed a little bit of entertainment mid-race, put up some of those Family Guy Subway Surfers TikToks for the ADHD tweens. Maybe that's what Ryan Chandler was looking at.
Maybe that keeps him entertained, I suppose. On the Le Mans straights, maybe, if he's doing that, I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad we got our answer. As Michael Tarafino was just having a battle with Colin McKenzie. The order suggested there that they did switch positions. I don't know if I quite trust that, because you don't often exchange positions quite in that way at this circuit. But it is good to see Tarafino almost finding his feet during the race here. And getting his way up to Colin McKenzie. I do remember, actually, from one of the interviews we did after the Daytona races, and it might have been Michael Tarafino, he said that he wasn't going to have much time to practice because he was going to the Rolex 24 last weekend. So maybe it was him, and maybe he's just a little bit down on practice as a result.
I think you might be right, because I did see Roy Brown in the chat a little bit earlier, Tarafino's Team Beef teammate. He said they were at the Rolex 24 all weekend. Michael Tarafino, though, he got back home in time. No Roy Brown this week, unfortunately. Maybe he's still recovering from the festivities of the weekend. He still needs to get the sim rig back together. But his teammate, he's got a championship to win. He's got to be in racing action. He's going to go for the move on Colin McKenzie, potentially into turn 1. He thinks about it, but it's a very big BMW nose to the inside. Not quite late enough on the brakes, though.
Well, he thought about it, though. He really thought about it for a long and hard moment there. But couldn't quite get his nose down the inside, couldn't quite find the excuse to just throw that one in there. And so he's going to have to wait another lap. He just needs that really good exit off of the hairpin. Needs to get really close around the curve there in the slipstream, and then he'll be absolutely there. We'll see if he can manage it maybe on the next lap, but it just is so hard to overtake on this circuit. I do wonder whether it's a better idea for him to just wait maybe until after the pit stops, and then he can really start thinking about who's around him and what overtakes to make for the last moments of the race.
Even as these two have been fighting, Matt Scherf, that Audi coming up, that's not a lapped car. That is 4 position. Matt Scherf has lost touch with Aero Urexoy, and he is completely in danger from being caught by Colin McKenzie and Tarafino here. McKenzie has kind of struggled with the wheel off of the hairpin. He did a better job that time. He kept it straight, but that is definitely a place where Tarafino's been stronger. Unfortunately, right as I break out that piece of analysis, he proves me wrong, and he gets it right this time.
Yeah, he's as the lap car just gets out of the way of everybody completely. Tarafino nowhere near as close as he was last time around into turn 1. And I do wonder just how much longer these guys are going to go now on a tank of fuel, and just how long they're going to leave it until they actually come into the pit lane. But that's going to be the really defining moment of the race, and especially where they come out in relation to the likes of Michael Peviano and also Rob Campbell as well. Peviano finding himself in a bit of traffic now though, really.
Jay Steffi is in, Regan Chandler is in, Alex Wright is in. We're starting to get even more takers. The carousel of entertainment of the pit cycle, it keeps circling on. Is Matt Scherf maybe saving a little bit of fuel here to shorten his pit stop, or has he just lost touch with Aero Urexoy? That's the question that remains to be seen, because that gap has just expanded and expanded and expanded over the last couple of laps. It was 2-3 a lap slower on that last lap. It's almost expanded to 2 seconds now. And look at this train that's catching up behind him. Mackenzie already to the back of Scherf rather. Terrafino to the back of him as well. And while these guys ride in train mode, Greg Doucette's doing all the catching in the world as well. He's got completely clean air.
Yeah, has oh dear, oh that's not pretty. But oh dear me, the Audi and Ferrari going around there, and a bit of a slalom course for everyone else as well, unfortunately.
Drew DeWeese, we call that the Will Power move.
Once again, the dangers of Long Beach, really, with everybody finding themselves in the way, especially at this section here, where it is so narrow. There's no space to breathe there, really, but that's why we don't often see any moves into turn 4.
When we do see them, willpower, they do tend to end in an absolute disaster. Here comes Terrafino again, just trying to scare Colin McKenzie a little bit under braking. Still can't do it. It's interesting, though, because we're seeing, even in a fixed setup series, even with the BOP that iRacing and the Precision Racing League themselves have put in place here, the Audi and the BMW are running similar lap times, but they're doing it in very different ways. Colin McKenzie's lines, they tend to be far wider. He's kind of wringing the neck of the car a little bit more. Michael Terrafino's a little bit tighter, a little bit more in control. And somehow these two driving styles have completely evened out. Yeah,
it's slightly turned out weirdly, really. But entertaining to watch at the moment, and it's going to be entertaining through the traffic as well. That's going to be the real challenge for the second half of this race, and it will be for the sprint series as well, coming up after this one. But for the last 15 minutes of this one, it's going to be a case of getting through the traffic as best as you possibly can. It's, you know, really going to hurt you in some sections, and you're really going to benefit from it in others as well. You've got to just take the rough with the smooth, really, and get on with it the best you can. You can see that the whole leading four closing in with each other right now, within 2 seconds almost at this stage.
I hope people at home weren't watching on a 3D TV, because that Michael Terrafino front left suspension shot, you were just getting spat straight into a wall there. So that was probably pretty terrifying, as we do ride in the passenger seat of Michael Terrafino's car now. That's something that's notably missing in GT3 racing. You've got the Circuit Safari and Super Formula, where you can ride on a double-decker bus on the track while cars are going around. Maybe we need to sell some passenger opportunities.
Yeah, that's wild, by the way. But yes, I bet it's possible. It would be quite a frightening ride, and this is quite frightening to watch, really. One of the Ferrari's lap cars getting out of the way, or trying to. Terrafino benefiting from it. Colin McKenzie in front, and Terrafino just not going to be able to benefit at all, or not going to be able to get through, I should say, on McKenzie at all. He's close through the hairpin, but I doubt he's going to get the slipstream, and I doubt he's going to be able to make a move into turn 1.
I think that may have been Rob DeLoach. Yes, it was Rob DeLoach going a lap down. So his early stop might not be paying off for him. He's gone a lap down now. The leaders still have yet to pit, but it's not looking too good for Rob DeLoach with that early pit stop strategy in that orange Ferrari. But as everybody navigated through that traffic, as we continue on waiting for that pit stop, the gap has ebbed and flowed in traffic. This is going to be a race of the moving chicanes. Aero Urexoy lost a full second on that last lap to Matt Scherf.
Yeah, he had almost his whole lead wiped away, and he might be about to have it again. When you are the leader, to be fair, often people talk about you waking that traffic up, I suppose, but around a circuit like this, I do find that they're most reluctant to let the leader through. When everyone's close-ish like this, they'll kind of let everyone else through after the leader, but the leader does have to suffer through at least a couple of corners of hurt, so it could allow the top 4 to close in, and really interested to see where the likes of Michael Peviano filter their way through with this one. Based on early evidence, we're not expecting early stoppers to be too inclusive in the latter portion of the race, but Look at the way that the leader's being slowed up now by lap traffic, and well, they're still not pitting, which I find really bizarre, if I'm honest.
And he is not having a good time in lap traffic. That's Alex Wright up ahead, who's not a lap down. He technically has every right to stay on the lead lap to fight for this position, but he is becoming a cork in the bottle for Aero Urexway. He got caught up into the hairpin, couldn't make the move. It's kind of a tale of two races right now. Of course, Urexway is getting held up by the lap traffic ahead, but of course, in the process, it's very difficult to pass at Long Beach. So even though the drivers behind are closing the gap, they're not really going to be able to make the move. So I'm thinking, if you are Matt Scherf, if you are Colin McKenzie, if you are Michael Terrafino, why wouldn't you have come in on that last stop? I guess they must think there's more traffic, there's worse traffic deeper in the field.
I do think that the traffic is probably everywhere now, and that there's no real clean portion of the racetrack anymore, but it's got to be better than this at times. Down the inside now for Urexway, and he has been able to do it, and now you see what I mean, that the lap traffic gets out the way for second, third and fourth, and that's all fine, but the leader's got to work really hard, and now there is a bit of a battle for second. Scherf able to hold off McKenzie for the moment, but Urexway's got to work really hard to get around the lap traffic, and then, you know, the others basically get a free pass, really.
Karangis was in, Dinsmore Hansen, and there is a pileup at the hairpin. The leaders navigate it around the outside, but that was some dicey stuff. McKenzie chooses to come in. Terrafino, I think, was involved. He decides to come in as well after getting checked up. Kalaga was involved. There are a ton of cars still parked at the hairpin that haven't been cleaned up yet. Yeah, that could be a real traffic jam. We've seen it in the past in real life and in the sim world as well. This is how it happened. It was Kalaga.
Was it Kalaga?
Oh, it was Jay Steffi, rather. The other Ford.
Yeah, well, Baron Glover's the other one as well, to be fair. But yeah, it could be any of them. And then, you know, this real mess. I mean, even, you know, with them getting out of the way, it's still going to cause everyone to slow. And I think it did prompt most people, if not all, to come in there. We've got very few left to pit now.
Michael Terrafino has jumped Colin McKenzie in the pits. Wow. An 8.8 second stop for Terrafino, 10.8 for McKenzie. Remember when I said a little bit earlier that we can't write off Terrafino for this win? He might be in legitimate contention now with that short stop.
Oh, yeah. I think he is in contention, but I'm even more surprised because he did lose time around that hairpin there. He did lose a bit more time than some of them around him, so I'm especially surprised that he managed to jump McKenzie there. Maybe it was a bit of a slower stop for McKenzie, to be honest, because we also saw Kulaga hasn't pitted yet, has he? Eric Kulaga's pitted, getting a bit mixed up. So, yeah, I am surprised Terrafino's been able to jump in there, but we'll get a better picture of quite what's happening between those guys. As actually Max Scherf come in right now.
And the drivers to watch, other than your two leaders, Michael Pabiano has jumped Michael Terrafino as well. He's the lead driver who's pitted. Remember, he came in 8 laps ago. He got out of traffic. Michael Pabiano may have just pulled an absolute stunner on the field, but Matt Scherf and Aero Urexway, both in their boxes, both Audis. Have they been doing similar fuel saving? 10.5 seconds for Urexway, 11.2 for Matt Scherf. It's a slow stop. And now the question is, where is Michael Pabiano? I think he has just rounded the hairpin. He's coming down the front straight right now. Here comes Pabiano. Is he about to steal this lead?
I think he is. Pabiano.
There he goes. Pabiano takes the lead.
Oh, fantastic strategy from him. Over a second's worth of a lead as well. It's not even really close. Urexway's second, and he's only just out in front of Terrafino. It does seem that pitting early has been absolutely the right call here. Easy to say in hindsight, of course, but Michael Pabiano had the kind of knowledge and ability, strategical ability to think ahead and go for that early pit stop, get in clean air, put in some real fast lap times, and he's got his rewards for it now with a race lead. Very clever from him indeed.
Michael Pabiano trades 4th place when he came in for 1st place after the stop, and now he's got 8 minutes and a 2.5 second buffer. That's a pretty big gap. That's a pretty comfortable gap. Of course, lap traffic is going to come into consideration. This race is far from over. There's still traffic everywhere, but Michael Pabiano is absolutely the most comfortable driver in Long Beach right now.
I mean, he should be. I mean, Urexway might be able to close in a little bit and make him sweat for the last few minutes, but he should be pretty calm and comfortable. The battle really is going to be for 3rd place by the looks of things, because Max Scherf is absolutely not leaving Michael Terrafino alone. And there may even be a chance here into turn 1, although his acceleration wasn't quite as good as it needed to be, maybe, to make a move.
So everybody has now pitted. The order is legitimate now as it runs. Eric Kalaga rather, and Steven Martinez, they've cycled back into their spots in the last couple spots in the top 10. Dale Peterson, I think, has been a big winner across the cycle. He came in about 3 laps earlier than everybody else around him. He has advanced his way into the top 10. Rob Campbell, unfortunately one of the bigger losers, as well as Rodrigo Morales. They came in around the same time as Pabiano. But when the lap traffic giveth to some, it taketh away from others. And Pabiano's big win has hurt other people.
Yeah, it certainly has. And that's the kind of thing that you see around here at Long Beach. It's such a short circuit, you know, under 80 seconds a lap. And you're just going to find yourself in traffic wherever you are, really, at this stage in the race. And so it's unfortunate for some, and it really benefits others. And on this occasion, Michael Pabiano has played it best. But I do wonder whether any of the Sprint Series drivers are having a look, keeping an eye on this race, and just maybe taking 1 or 2 notes about how this race is quite going down. Because this race does now include a pit stop, as it didn't in some previous seasons.
I'm thinking back to 2 seasons ago when we ran the GT3 Fix series here. There was a pit stop, but when we had the sprint race, that's when Vincent Trepanier and Moises Caraballo managed to go for a 0 stop. So we did see a pit stop here with about 8 minutes to go, 9 minutes to go. I wonder, is somebody going to pull a Trepanier? I haven't seen any of the official races. I haven't seen if Casey Kerwin's been doing his usual thing of saving all the fuel and making it to the end. I kind of hope we see a 0 stop again. I want to see if it works still. As Matt Scherf, though, pulls the Max Chilton line through turn 5. He might be able to get a slowdown for that, as Michael Terrafino slows himself down by clipping the curb and losing it.
Yeah, Terrafino there very much contributing to his own loss of 3rd place, you would imagine. Has to go wide through this left-hander, and he's going to lose it into turn 7. And so that is it. Terrafino off the podium, Matsurev through, and he has looked pretty menacing on the back of that BMW ever since he was behind, following those pit stops. So Matsurev up into 3rd place now. We'll see if he can pull away from Terrafino, or whether this is going to be a race-long battle now for the final 5 minutes.
I'm surprised that Scherf didn't get a slowdown, because he, at least from the onboard, looked like he absolutely cut the inside of turn 5 there, and that's normally a slowdown. You can't do the Max Chilton move, but he's gotten away with it. He's played with just the right amount of the limits, and maybe the virtual stewards have forgiven him of his sins.
Well, maybe. It did seem like a bit of a cut, really, but well, sometimes you get away with these things.
Send it to VAR.
Oh dear, let's not go there. But yes, he's not going to be complaining. Put it that way. And I think you should be able to put Michael Terrafino in the rearview mirror at this point. I mean, through that corner, to be fair, you can kind of straddle that curve almost and sort of get away with it. There certainly is a way of getting over that curve without getting a slowdown, and also without unsettling the car as well. And Scherf really did nail it on that last lap.
Colin McKenzie has kind of been a new driver over the past couple of weeks. Got a podium at Daytona last week, running in the top 5 here. This is a driver who, honestly, in past seasons was not competitive in the top 10, was running in the teens, the 20s. But he has found an absolute new gear recently, with help from his teammates most likely, as he navigates some very treacherous traffic. It's been like a whole new Colin McKenzie. This is the best we've ever seen him.
He is having a good race, running inside the top 5, just a consistent race, really. I mean, even when he was inside the podium places, didn't really do anything spectacular or a headline grabbing to get there. Just sort of found himself there in 3rd place and was holding his ground there. So good pace, and is able to hold his position very well as well. He's going to get disconnected a little bit from Scherf and Terrafino by the looks of things, just due to a little bit of lap traffic there. But he'll absolutely take a top 5. I think pretty much it is his best result so far this season, I would imagine.
I think he did 2 better last week, or maybe even 3 better. I think he finished 2nd at Daytona last week. I got to check the stats there, but we do have to look back up front, because remember, that comfortable gap that I mentioned for Michael Pabiano over Urexoy, in traffic and in clean air, that gap has been decimated, and suddenly, with still 2 laps left to go in this race, Aero Urexoy has another shot of the win.
Yeah, being the leader is not all that advantageous, really. Well, you do get track position, I suppose, but you also hit lap traffic first, and that really does hurt you, as Michael Pepilano is finding out right now. And by the way, you were right, Colin McKenzie did finish 2nd last week. I was looking at all these other results apart from the last one. So
The sprint race was so close that you just forgot about the fixed race. It's easy.
It's typical, isn't it? But yeah, it's a good top 5 anyway for him. It should be for Mackenzie. But we don't know which order these two are going to finish in. 2 laps to go, 2 minutes to go. A little bit of lap traffic involved as well. Could be a nice finale, this.
2 laps to go, or rather it'll be 1 lap to go at the line. Can Pabiano hang on? Those next 2 lapped cars coming up, that's going to be Brian Hoskins and Andrew Venaro, 2 drivers who are always courteous in traffic, both very, very experienced PRL drivers in all sorts of disciplines. GT3, GT4, oval racing, they know what they're doing. But Michael Pabiano is still really, really hoping that he doesn't catch them.
Certainly is. Did lose a little bit of time there, did iRacing. Can't really explain why. Maybe he got slowed down, don't really know, but 1.1 seconds now. I think he will need the intervention of a little bit of lap traffic, and let's not forget a point at the end of qualifying. The spread of the field is not actually that large at all. I know it's a short circuit, and so time gaps are never going to be that large anyway, but even for here, it's a very close field. And so those that are running at the back aren't even that much slower than those running in the lead of this race right now. Pabiano's going to catch these guys on the last lap, but I don't know if it's quite going to be enough for iRacing to get back in contention and overtake him.
Barney the Long Beach flagman, white flag waving. Michael Pabiano has a 1.3 second lead to hang on to over iRacing, but Jordan Walker 5 laps down in the Porsche. He's the next driver to come up. Can Pabiano juggle the gap up to Walker and juggle the gap back to iRacing? The gap to the lapped cars is closing and closing and closing. Only a couple of miles to go for Michael Pabiano.
Yeah, it really is a juggling act right now. I think he just has to push as hard as possible and hope that the lap cars will just abide and cooperate with him. The Porsche does. And I think the Porsche driver knows that, there's a leading battle going on here. And so worth getting out the way for. And let's not just disrupt this anymore, because Michael Pabiano and iRacing are going to the line with this one. It looks like iRacing is going to run out of laps ever so slightly. He very much could have won this race, but a bit of clever strategy from Pabiano has put him in a great spot to win this one.
2 more corners to go for Michael Pabiano. Pitted 9 laps before his rivals, jumped them in traffic, found himself in control of the race, and he's going to hold off the fastest driver in practice and one of the fastest drivers in the race through the final corner, through the hairpin for the first time this season, for the first time in over 3 seasons. Michael Pabiano is finally victorious in the PRL GT3 Fixed Series for YS Sim Sport. Michael Pabiano finally gets one on the board this season after being so fast, after so many second places. He finally gets it done.
Yeah, it's great to see 3 podiums so far in this season, including a couple of second places, as you mentioned. So great to see him get that race win, and just ahead of iRacing as well. Big statements in the championship to put iRacing further in the rearview mirror and just bring Michael Terrafino back into view ever so slightly. It's not going to change the championship margin too much, but it's going to be around 16 points or so heading into the next race at Interlagos, and with 3 rounds to go, it's very much a championship up for grabs.
That's the thing about the PRL this season. In some previous seasons, there's been drivers that have kind of been selected at the start of the season. In our first GT3 Fixed Series that we covered, Danik Van Daly, he was going to win the championship from the start. Last season in the MX5s, Jameson Sampaio was going to win from the start. He was not going to be beaten. But this season, in every single series in the PRL, on every single night, there's none of that. There's no drivers that have jumped out ahead of the field. It is one of the most competitive seasons in PRL history, and Michael Pabiano has now joined it with a win ahead of iRacing and Matt Scherf on the podium. Michael Terrafino, championship leader in a race that was slightly off pace for him. A slightly off pace race still equals 4th place. Colin McKenzie finishes off the top 5, 2 top 5s in a row for him. Dino Vella, probably the most quiet race of anybody in the field. He gets P6 for his efforts. Dale Peterson and Greg Doucette make it all Canada on 7th and 8th. Eric Kalaga brings the Ford home in 9th, and Steven Martinez brings it home in 10th. Angelo Veloz and Nicholas Carangis bring us down to 12th. Matt Dinsmore, great race for him, finishes unlucky 13th ahead of Buck Hamilton. Rob Campbell ended up in a very strange wall and ended up in an unfortunate 15th. Regan Chandler, Rodrigo Morales, Phil Amaro, Mark File, and Felix Feliz bring us down to 20th. Still a lot of drivers on the lead lap. Kevin Hansen on debut finishes 21st. Michael Kalaga, Alex Wright, Barry Cochran, Rob DeLoach, Jeff Fleischman, Lucio Vargas, Ryan Chandler, Andrew Venaro, and Brian Hoskins, the last driver on the lead lap. Glenn Vanko for Team Beef went 1 lap down. Waldo Walden, didn't talk about him much tonight. He finished 32nd ahead of Ryan Luna. Jay Steffi in one of those other Fords. Even though he ended up in the pits after a tow, he still finished 34th 1 lap down ahead of Baron Glover. And then we get into the used car lot of cars with heavy damage. Michel Plord, Aiden Irvin got italicized. Drew DeWeese, Jordan Walker, Sully Saad, and a few others. Jason Lotridge, Chris Yatito, Frank Johnson, and Maurice Gomillion all ended up in the used car lot here at Long Beach. We finally have Mike Pabiano. Michael Pabiano, we've talked to you a ton this season, but for the first time, we're talking to you as a winner. Talk us through that decision to pit early, jump the whole field.
Thanks a lot, Joey. Yeah, it's I guess it's a long time coming. A lot of fast guys that you gotta really focus on here and try and beat. And I just know this track, and just based on experience, if you start to get to hitting the lap traffic, I know that the lap times are going to go away. So I timed it right. I found a gap where I knew if I could go in and pit, and when I get out, at least give me a few seconds gap between the front, the people that are going to be trailing. And it worked out. Allowed me to put in some good lap times that I knew was going to make a difference. So yeah, I'm happy with the win. Thank you.
So there's only 3 weeks to go now. The season has flown by. Interlagos, Road America, Okayama. You're 16 points behind Michael Terrafino. Predict the rest of the championship for us. Predict the next 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, I can't predict the results, but what I could say is I could, I'll definitely do my best. I'll put in the practice time, and just make sure that I keep contending in there. I think the best I could do is just give myself a chance in the podium, and if I get the win, I get the win. But one thing's for certain, lots of practice needed. That's for sure.
Lots of practice always needed in the PRL. Such a high level of competition, but you have topped it for the second time in the PRL career. First time this season. Congrats again, Mike Pabiano, on your win tonight.
Thanks, Joey.
Michael Pabiano victorious, but the driver who topped practice was so fast in the race, came up just short. Errol Urexoy is here with you and O'Leary.
All right, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. Second place, couldn't quite get there ahead of Michael Pabiano. What did you think about the strategy that Pabiano kind of introduced there? Did you think that the early pit stoppers were going to work, or did you trust in your own strategy maybe more?
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me. It didn't work. I foiled myself in the pits. My fuel calculator was off, so I had to guesstimate the fuel. And I took about a lap and a half extra fuel. And I'm watching the replay now of him overcutting me out of the pits. I would have cleared him by almost a second if I hadn't made the fuel mistake. So not to take anything away from him, because he's a great driver and he made zero mistakes once I was behind him and cut through traffic really well. But yeah, I think that one I did it to myself.
And like Michael as well, you've closed in on the championship lead as well, albeit by a little bit of a less margin than he has here tonight. But what do you reckon about your chances now? 3 races to go, more than 30 points back. How do you think you can get on now with the end of the season in sight?
I haven't done the math yet, but I think I feel pretty confident in this Audi. The Vulture Audi GT3 is doing really well. It's really hooked up everywhere we take it. And so I'm pretty confident that I'll at least be bringing in at least podiums. I think tonight was my best chance to bring home a win this season. And, it's one of those things I'm going to have to go home and cry on my pillow about, that I made the fuel mistake.
Hopefully not. Yeah, congratulations on second place either way. It's still a good result, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
All right, guys, I'll be back in here next week, I promise.
Thanks very much.
Have a good one.
Make sure to dry your pillow.
Yeah, I will.
Errol Urexoy, P2. I think he'll save his tears for another day like the weekend did. But Matt Scherf is here, third place. As always, most popular driver in the chat with the Scherf family, and another podium on the season. Of course, I got to talk to you about the start. Kind of got swallowed up by Urexoy and the gang. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I wasn't sure where to start at here. I didn't know if coming out of the hairpin I was supposed to just launch it or wait down the straight a little bit, and I kind of caught myself out. But then Rexoy got in front of me, and I was gonna just kind of help him go, team wise, and then I overfilled the car on the pit stop and kind of cost myself. I thought it was going to be a podium, but then Terrafina made one little mistake, and I got past him.
So you've been another driver who's won this season, who's been on pole twice this season. There's still 3 weeks to go at 3 somewhat different tracks. Which one do you think suits you in the Audi the most? And do you think the championship hopes are still alive?
I'd have to say probably Road America. That's probably one of my stronger tracks. I don't know if the championship individually is still up for me after last week's kind of disaster at Daytona, but just trying to get good points, have fun, see what we can do. Maybe we can make a charge at least, and if not, hopefully we can win that team championship.
Well, we wish you all good luck over at Vulture Motorsports. Congrats on another podium tonight. I'm sure you're going to be getting a lot of text messages after tonight based on the popularity of the chat. We'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you. Thank you.
Matt Scherf, podium-er. I think that is a verb. And that's about it for drivers here in the fixed race tonight. But this is not the only race we have tonight, Ewan. As we always say, it's a doubleheader of GT3 action, and we're staying at Long Beach. We're shifting over to the GT3 Sprint Series, where we switch from a fixed series to an open series. We had 10 more minutes to the clock, and if that wasn't enough, we had a Pro-Am split as well. More drivers, more cars, and that is even more drama for Long Beach.
Yeah, and 5 minutes more racing as well, by the way. 40-minute race coming up, so should be another good one. Sometimes adding more cars, but let's see about that as well. But certainly adds faster speeds to these races. The open setups really do allow these drivers to go that little bit faster, really. Other than anything else, we do see the speeds increase quite often as we have a look at the championship standings.
Yeah, Elliott White just barely got beaten in that photo finish last week by his teammate Daniel Krasowski, but he still holds on to the championship lead. The greedy little guy, he's not only leading this season, but he was leading the Wednesday night Xfinity Series championship standings as well. One championship's not good enough for Elliott White, but Sean Dickinson has been absolutely on fire the past couple of weeks. Got kind of muddled at Daytona last week after dominating at Silverstone and Manicourt, but he's still in the championship fight, along with Karl Modoff and Daniel Krasowski, who won last week at Daytona, as I said. Raymond Yip has kind of been the wild card. He's been so consistent, hasn't necessarily been in contention for race wins, but he's been picking up the points when it matters. He's in the top 5. Martin Crisp, P6, ahead of Ryan Pucktel. Connor Wagner has had a lot of speed as well, just hasn't quite had the results. Josh Spears and Noah Anderson round out the top 10 in the pro standings. But there is a Pro-Am split in this series, a different point system for this season, where if you are the lead AM driver, you don't get the points for the win, you get the points for where you finished on track. So every position matters. Turner Schroll has collected the most positions so far this season, but it's only 3 points over Blake Zeedy, and that's only 6 points over sort of the underdog, David Mendonca. Nathan Deering has won a race this season. He sits P4. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan and Kwok Nin are tied for 5th. Darren Rutherford and downtown Gary Brown tied for 7th. And there's not one more tie. Brett Thurman sits 9th, all on his lonesome, ahead of Mr. Matt Hilton. Unrelated to Baron Hilton, as far as I know. The team standings, they are unified. Pros and AMs can be on the same team, and it's all pros at Delta Sport at the top of the sheets over Precision Racing Esports by about 31 points. SimCity Racing with Crispin Dickinson 3rd ahead of Blue Chip. The second Precision Racing Esports team is 5th. Upfront Motorsports, Race Factory Blue, Forge Racing, Alert, and Speedworks Racing Team. SRT Esport, they round out the top 10 in the team standings. So many strong teams, so many big names in this series. As if that fixed race wasn't good enough, we're about to do it again. It's the week so nice. It's the day of the week, the night of the week so nice we do it twice. Something like that. Let's look at some SRT Esport Ferraris.
Yeah, in qualifying right now. But yeah, should be a good race. Looking forward to it. And looking forward to seeing if we can maybe get this Pro Championship a little bit closer as well. Elliott White has really taken control of it as a result of the last round. But the interesting thing for me is that 2nd to 5th are only separated by 5 points, as we've just seen. So maybe it will get a little bit closer for number 1 spot after this one. But I have to say, I'm really enjoying the AM Championship this season. The new point system has not been a fan of some, I suppose, but or some people haven't been a fan of it, I should say, but I have. I've really enjoyed it, and I can guess anyway that there's going to be another twist in the tail here after this race.
And another additional thing that you have to think about this season in this series is you have to complete 75% of the race to get your points. So previously in this series, you could finish 32nd or so, and you would get 0 points because you'd be out of the points. But now, if you finish more than 75% of the race, you are rewarded, and you do get that 1 point, even if you do finish outside of the top 30 when the points stop being awarded. And if you do finish outside the top 30, you finish less than 75% of the race, you get 0 points. So that is your that's your carrot to chase, to finish the race, to not park it after some unfortunate circumstances, to pick up every point you can. And we've seen a lot of drivers kind of exhibit that hardy mindset this season. Nick McLaughlin had to exhibit that mindset a lot of times last season. He had a lot of bad luck last season, but this season, he's turned things around. It's back to the Nick McLaughlin we know. I think that might be because he's back in his favorite Ferrari.
Yeah, he does like it. And we've seen him win. I think he did win when he was in the AM section of this championship. I think he did win this race at Long Beach. Although he was in a season-long championship fight with someone whose name escapes me right now. I'll get back to you on that. But
search the database. But Nick McLaughlin, very smartly, after winning that AM championship, after winning 2 AM championships in this series, he's been promoted to pro. He deserved that a long time ago, but he's finally here.
Yeah, rightfully so, I think, as well. He's a strong driver. Too strong in my books to be floundering around well, I don't say floundering around because that kind of undermines what the AM drivers are doing, doesn't it? They're good drivers as well, and they'd all beat me. let's make that clear. But he's too good to be in the AM field. I think pro field is where he deserves to be, and there's no reason why he can't get a nice result in this season in that category as well. He's not had a top 5 yet, but that's kind of result is very much achievable for him. If not this season, then early part of next season, and moving forwards as well. He absolutely deserves to be in the pro category.
I think if the PRL ever brings back the single make Ferrari challenge, we're gonna have to get you in the field, Ewan, because I already had to experience that for half a season. Nick McLaughlin beat me 5 weeks in a row. I finished second to him, I think, twice. So I think we need to throw you in the field so you can get humbled by the Nickster.
I'd take being beaten by Nick McLaughlin. It's just who else is going to beat me as well.
That's true.
Somebody who's just put their pet in there still beating me, I reckon, maybe. But yeah, he certainly does know his way around a Ferrari. Just Nick McLaughlin. There's no way around that. As won the Ferrari Challenge, as you mentioned, and likes the GT3 championship in this car as well, as he sets his opening time in this qualifying session right now.
Now I'm going to be thinking about pet jokes with drivers. Can I put dog or cat in anybody's name? I don't know yet, but we've got William Brennan here. Of course, the former Supreme Court Chief Justice William Brennan. Was he a Chief Justice or was he an Associate Justice? I should probably know that if I've been doing this joke for about 10 weeks. But he, in the Lamborghini, is another driver who's kind of picked up the pace this season. He raced with us in the GT4s last season. Was decent, had a few decent results. Wasn't competing for wins, was rarely competing in the top 10. But again, in this AM Championship, in this new series, he's found a new life. He's found a series that fits him more.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always good to see. Really, this is more of a warming up lap here, by the way. Really, for Brennan, just getting himself set up for the next lap. But yeah, it's just about finding your feet, really, and finding where you're comfortable, and also finding a series and a car that you enjoy, I suppose, as well. And when you're doing something and competing in something that you enjoy, then you're going to do better in it naturally. So we'll see what William Brennan can do right now in the AM category. Another good chance on board right now to have a look at this Long Beach circuit and just how narrow it is in some of these places, as the top 2 in qualifying right now are absolutely dead even.
And Nathan Bartley, that's a name that we have not seen at the top of the qualifying sheets this season. That's an incredible lap from Bartley to beat Boris Ovando, to beat Karl Modoff, Connor Wagner, Krasowski. Nathan Bartley's come out of nowhere. He's shown up at Long Beach.
He certainly has, and that is a surprise. Nowhere to be seen in terms of the championship standings, unlike Boris Ovando, of course, who's been up there in the last couple of weeks and was contending last week as well. I know he's not up there in the standings at all, really, but he was up there in the early part of the last race, and certainly has the pace to compete in this one. So we'll see what he can do. as William Brennan comes towards the line right now and has done a 19.6, going to be outside the top 20 with that one in the Lamborghini. But yeah, remarkable really to see two drivers absolutely even to the absolute thousandth there, and they've got nearly a couple of attempts over the rest of the field as well, which is quite impressive.
And Miguel Angel Fonseca, speaking of drivers who have been promoted from AM to Pro, Miguel dominantly won the AM Championship in this series last season, got promoted to Pro deservedly for this season, and again, he has just stepped up a notch. This is not a guy who's still fighting for AM level positions. He's P5 against the pros right now. That was definitely a setup through the hairpin, very, very wide to maximize his run down the front straight. We'll see what Miguel Angel Fonseca can do. Could he be the spoiler to beat Nathan Bartley off a pole?
It seems to be one of those improving drivers, really, just Fonseca. Not able to improve on his lap time there, but improving his driving, no doubt, over the last few seasons. We've seen him here in the PRL on RaceSpotTV, which is always great to see, because, you know, when we first did this series a couple of seasons ago, I remember him in the AM category, and he wasn't exactly competing for, you know, loads of wins in the AM category through that season. Maybe partly because of Nick McGoffin and so on, and drivers like him. But even so, Fonseca would maybe snag a podium in AM, but other than that, it would be a struggle. And now to see where he is, top 5 in this qualifying session right now, it is, you know, almost like watching a different driver.
I think it's the highlighter yellow. Makes anybody faster.
Well, that is true. It's certainly helpful for us. We don't mind a brightly coloured car to pick out in the bunch.
It is never hard to find Miguel Angel Fonseca on track. Carl Modoff jumps up to P3, dumps Gonzalo Cortez out of the top 3. But here comes Miguel Angel Fonseca through the final sector. So tight here, literally a parking lot in the final couple of corners here. Then around the hairpin, back on the shoreline drive. And here comes Miguel Angel Fonseca to the line. Can he improve on a 118.1? Yes, he can. 118.049 for Miguel Angel Fonseca. 5th wasn't good enough. He puts himself on the 2nd row.
Yeah, another good improvement there. Just a slight improvement, of course. There's not too much time to find, you'd imagine, now around this circuit. Not only because of the way the layout works, really, but also the time remaining. These drivers will have been hitting their limit, really. And Kormadov might be feeling something similar, really. He just had to touch on the brakes on the exit there of turn 8, which is really going to hurt his run down the back straight as well, and into the final few corners. He's really not that far away from an actual pole position right now, but I just don't think he can find those few hundredths of a second to get there, although it could be close.
Let's see, can Carl Modoff prove you and wrong to the line? Nope, not quite. About a 10th slower. Still a lap that would have put him P6 otherwise, but he was hoping for a little bit more. He might get one more lap in if he does have one more lap in the tank. I'm not sure he does, but there is time for him to go out for one extra lap of practice, just for the heck of it. Elliott White, your dominant championship leader for the moment, your 2nd place finisher last week after getting jumped James Allen style to the line by Daniel Krasowski. This has been a struggle for him in P13. It's a little bit like what we saw from Michael Terrafino in the fixed race. Our championship leader struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Terrafino managed to pick it up eventually in the qualifying session, and by now, Terrafino was up there. But Elliott White really struggling here. Clearly on an out lap, but I think he's going to run out of time to do his next one. So Elliott White's going to be right in the danger zone here. He's ahead of all the AMs, but that's not going to alleviate any problems, I wouldn't have thought. And he'll be, you know, battling to get through the round, the final hairpin by the time the green flag is waving in this race. So that's going to be a real worry for the championship leader. This is where he'll be glad that he's got 26 points to sort of, you know, conserve in terms of a championship lead there. And he'll be very glad about that. But you know, he wants to preserve it for as long as possible, and he won't want to start from 13th place.
Carl Modoff is going to be saying thank you very much. 27 points back to our championship leader. This is what I need. Both drivers, White and Modoff, and Dickinson for that matter, they've all used their drop week basically. Krasowski as well. Krasowski had a DNS. He did not start round 5 at Manicourt. Modoff, last week at Daytona, finished about 21st. He had a really bad race. That's going to be his drop week. Dickinson DNF'd in round 2. That's going to be his drop week. And Elliott White DNF'd in round 3. That's going to be his drop week. So all these drivers, they can't afford bad races anymore. They need to be 100% to the end of this season. And this could be what blows the championship wide open. Elliott White Unlucky 13th, unfortunately for him. Sean Dickinson as well, driver who's been absolutely dominant in qualifying, down in P9. But up at the head of the field, Nathan Bartley, previous best qualifying this season, 11th. Suddenly he starts on pole for the first time in the Precision Racing League, about a 1/10 of a 1,000th of a second faster than Boris Angel Ovando. Carl Modoff P3 ahead of the promoted AM Miguel Angel Fonseca. Gonzalo Cortez in the effervescent red Audi starts 5th alongside Mr. Martin Crisp. P7, Connor Wagner for Delta Sport in his trusty Porsche alongside last week's winner Dan Krasowski. Sean Dickinson, the qualifying master at Manicore and Silverstone, could only muster 9th rather. And Ryan Pucktel starts in 10th. Ethan Osowski has had some good qualifying performances this season. He starts alongside Nicholas Larson on row 6. Elliott White, championship leader, unlucky 13th alongside Andres Espinoza. Raymond Yip starts 15th, and then the lead AM driver in qualifying, Kwok Nin. Jerome Bertiome back with us this season. The PRL head honcho qualifies 2nd in class. Could he go for his 2nd PRL win in the GT3 side? Caleb Lehman starts alongside him in 18th. Blake Ziti starts 19th, 3rd in AM, alongside J.R. Williams. Then it's Chase Brown, P21, alongside the AM David Mendonca. Downtown Gary Brown looking to make moves from 23rd, alongside Thomas Dunn. Then it was a little bit of a stinker for the old buddies Ted McLaughlin and... I'm just going to keep going with that. Ted McLaughlin and Nick Lowendick. I'm going to merge their two names there. They start on row 13, and then Josh Spears and Noah Anderson, the up-front teammates, not quite starting up front, unfortunately. David Lamont and Jeff Carollo on row 15. Hits keep on coming, though. Jennifer McDonald, 31st. Turner Stroll, Jeremy Gonsalves, former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan, Sean Carmody, and Mac and Cheese Sean McInnes. David Morse starts 37th. Last driver to set a qualifying lap time. And Romain Foe did not set a time in qualifying, is not on the grid right now. I don't think we'll be seeing Romain Foe in this race. I guess it's a fitting last name that he's not actually going to be on the grid.
Well, maybe that's French or something. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it's a nicely formed grid once again, and we're set for another good race, really. Interested to see, especially where Elliott White gets to in the upper portion of this race, and just what a clean start we get off to as well, because it was a bit of a mess through the hairpin really in the fixed race, rather than at turn 1, which I wasn't expecting. But they look a bit more. Well, I say that
there was a dive from Gonzalo Cortez, and he's making contact with Martin Crisp. I don't think Gonzalo Cortez got the memo. He went for a dive. We're waiting for the green flag as everybody tries to navigate through the hairpin cleanly and precisely, but Gonzalo Cortez may have other ideas. The green flag is out here. Nathan Bartley leads us to green, and here comes Boris Ovando to the outside already. He's going Aero Urexoy style.
Goodness me, this is a lot more packed up and a lot more dangerous than what we saw in the fixed series. Nearly 3 wide into turn 1. Oh, I think they've made it work though. That's a remarkable start from everybody, and Ovando has taken the lead and very nearly taken himself out straight into the fountain section. Very close with Bartley trying to retake it. It was a nicely clean start, I think, by the end, but it was very, very tense for a moment there.
Fonseca and Modoff were side by side, basically from turn 1 all the way through the fountain section. Through the corners we said you couldn't go side by side through. Somehow he managed to pull it off. He does finally fall, though, to Carl Modoff. Gonzalo Cortez eventually gets back in line. He might come under the ire of the stewards for his little jump into the hairpin. Daniel Krasowski's had a good start. He's up to 6th, ahead of Connor Wagner.
Yeah, it's been a good start for some, but I mean, it's stayed very much in terms of single file, really, in terms of this opening moments of this race. Very much more close together than what we saw in the fixed series. 2 starts couldn't be more different, really. It does look like most have been able to get through cleanly, other than Nick McLaughlin.
Oh dear.
That is a shame, unfortunately, and there may be a story to tell there. Yeah, it has been 2 decent starts tonight, which I can't say I was expecting when I turned up this evening.
That's what I get for saying that he's turned the bad luck around. That's also what I get for calling him Ted McLaughlin. But the bad luck has struck Nick McLaughlin already at Long Beach. He's been in the pits for a good 50 seconds now. I don't know if that's because of damage or if he started from the pits or had a technical failure or something, but bad luck already for Nick. Josh Spears as well has run into trouble. He's down pit lane. For as big of a field as we have, there's still 35 cars running damage-free, so it's a pretty good sample size. Unfortunately, somebody's always going to find wall.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit. Oh my word, that's
and Gonzalo Cortez is going to find the wall. Gets absolutely punted by Dan Krasowski there. Cortez was getting aggressive on the the outlap on the pace lap, and maybe that was a little bit of payback from Krasowski.
Yeah, and he did get a little bit aggressive at times at Daytona as well in terms of making some moves. Made the last lap lunge, well, not lunge, it was a pass on the trial really, but did make the last lap pass on his teammate to take the win in the race. And yeah, it's a risky dive really to be making into that corner, and it's not come off at all, sending the Audi all the way back. So yeah, a real shame really, and one that Krasowski may well get a penalty for really.
I have to imagine that Gonzalo Cortez, who has been caught under the ire of the stewards a couple of times himself, but everybody gets to protest. Everybody, if they're in the wrong, is going to get a penalty, and have to imagine there may be a slight points penalty coming to Daniel Krasowski's way for that little dive. We'll have to see what Chief Driver Steward Arnaud Genet pulls off in the PRL stewarding channel. All of those are always published on YouTube. All the stewarding investigations published on the forums. You see the results in the PRL Discord. It's a transparent process.
It is, and it's a very good thing about it as well. You don't really want, these things being kept behind closed doors really, because then you don't really understand quite what's going on and why decisions are being made. So having everything just transparent and public like that is the best way to do it, and we can see just how the powers that be have come to the conclusion that they have. But I would imagine anything other than a conclusion that Krasowski is at fault there would be a surprise, in my opinion anyway. I know we only saw it once, but even so, I'm fairly sure on that one anyway. But we'll see over the coming days, of course, as we go back to the Anfield, which is kind of giving us a good example again of quite why this Championship is so different this year, because Quacknin is one position in front right now, but really quite a few positions on the road in front of his nearest competitors.
Jerome Bertillon back with us in this field for the first time in 4 weeks, actually. He's been so busy doing his own thing, been doing the admin duties, been running literally everything with the Precision Racing League, but of course he finds time to race in his own league as well, and he also finds time to somehow put his camera in an impossibly high space, so he looks nice and little.
I think it's got to be that high, to be honest, because of his triple screens that look really big, to be fair to him. So he's doing his best, and he looks like he's got more screens behind him as well. They're not on, but
he's got a whole office back there.
He's got, yeah, wow, that's, well, too many for me, but anyway, he seems to be, know what he's doing. Yeah, putting them to good use now. Dear me, that's strange, but the Audi's out the way.
I think that was a driver, knowing they had damage, just kind of offing themselves. I think that was potentially Gonzalo Cortez, who's down pit lane, so his race may have just gotten a little bit worse. Nicholas Larson, another Audi, I think he's actually a more likely suspect there. Looked like he had suspension damage, and looked like he kind of did the honorable thing and offed himself into that runoff area as to not hold off this battle for second between Jerome Bertillon and Blake Ziti. Ziti's won a race in class this season. He's won multiple races in the GT3 competition, the PRL, and he's trying to go around the outside, the guy who owns it all.
Yeah, well, wasn't quite able to do it there for second place in the AM category, and now this is really holding up everybody, to be honest. It's cork in the bottle situation once again. We saw this earlier on in the fixed series in the early portion of the race. In the first stint, this is really what happens. There's somebody at the front of a large group like this, driving behind, can't quite get through, and it just slows up everybody behind, and it's exactly what's happening. Blake Ziti just unable to get through right now, and it's easy to see why, really, looking at this circuit. Just impossible, really.
Bad news as well for fans of Ted Lowendick. He's the next driver to come victim of the wall. He's down pit lane. He's getting heavy damage repaired. Things have gotten worse for Ted Lowendick as well. After getting his name wrong, after switching it up, both him and Nick McLaughlin have both ended up down pit lane with heavy damage, so maybe that was some bad luck. Blake Ziti trying to set up the hairpin here. It's a great exit, but it's a greater exit for Jerome Bertillon. He's still holding back this whole train.
He is, and doing a good job. Let's not make any mistake that just because it's hard to overtake around here doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything as the leading driver. You do have to still position the car in the right way, drive in the right way to make sure that nobody gets through on you, and that's exactly what the 217 is managing right now. Blake Ziti finding it very difficult. I mean, could have really had a huge lunge into turn 1, but it's just not really necessary at this stage in the race. Got to wait for a better opportunity than that, but certainly will be getting in the mirrors at this point, and just have to be careful that nobody gets in his mirrors and tries to get through on him.
Yeah, Mendonca, luckily for Blake Ziti, David Mendonca, the next car in class, is a couple of cars behind. There's a couple of pros in this delicious sandwich. J.R. Williams and Chase Brown are both in the middle there, holding between Mendonca and Ziti. It's been a good lap this time out for Jerome Bertium, though. He's pulled the gap a little bit. Maybe he's gotten back in the rhythm for the moment. And Ziti's got to work on getting in an even better rhythm. As I'm just getting hungry now because I was thinking about Ziti. I said a sandwich. It's all falling apart here at 9:52.
It's yeah, jeez. Yeah,
it's early. It's early for me.
Yeah, I guess earlier than it for me, I suppose, depending on which way you look at it. Early morning. Anyway, Ziti not able to go for it. He's not even as close as he was last time either. He does seem to be faster in a straight line. Just from having that lap on board there, and you kind of get a good idea for the way that the cars are behaving. He does seem to be a bit faster in a straight line, which just to me, he's got a little bit less wing on at the moment, which you do tend to see at Long Beach. Actually, you'd think it's such a tight street circuit, but generally, I can't. This is not only just an iRacing thing, but just generally in sim racing, I've noticed that you don't often need a lot of actual aerodynamic wing angle at this circuit, because a lot of the corners are slow speed anyway, so you're kind of relying on the mechanical grip more, especially in GTs. So you can kind of use that a little bit more and kind of take out some of the wing, which is kind of counterintuitive at such a slow speed and twisty circuit, but it can work, and it can also give you a bit of straight line speed as well, but it doesn't look like it's quite given Blake Ziti enough to quite go through.
I'm starting to think right now, as we've been through about 10 minutes of this race already, if we're going to see that zero stop again, if somebody's going to pull the Vincent Trepanier from 2 seasons ago, looking down the list of times, nobody's really explicitly saving anything, unless maybe Karl Modoff being about 0.6 off the pace is a sign of saving. I'm not sure it is. The likes of Andres Espinoza and Ethan Osowski are about a second off the pace, but I don't know if that's fuel saving or if that's just being off the pace of Boris Ovando. It's an absolute mystery of strategy here.
It is really. I think that the fact that a couple of seasons ago someone pulled it off by actually making no stops has completely thrown us entirely. Previously, it really was a one-stop race every time, and we absolutely knew what was going to happen, but now we've had that seed of doubt planted in our minds, I think. I don't know whether it's the same for the drivers, whether they do look around and wonder sometimes whether someone's going to try it, but certainly planted it in my mind, and now there is uncertainty, but I think with the extra 5 minutes we have on this race now compared to what we had back then, maybe it's pushed it out of the question, because I don't actually think they've got any more fuel than they did back then.
Nathan Bartley has been keeping Boris Ovando some very nice company. The gap has been about 0.3 of a second for the last couple of laps, but again, Bartley's been finding it tough to pass that highlighter yellow Audi. Very easy to see, very difficult to miss. Bartley can't quite close enough. They're just dead even on speed.
Yeah, they really are, and unfortunately, to make an overtake around here at Long Beach, it being equal on speed, being even on speed is not really good enough to actually go through. You've got to have a little bit of an advantage or wait for a bit of a mistake, which Ovando may have just provided for Bartley down the... Oh, he had a look, but wasn't willing to go for it.
I was getting flashbacks to what his teammate did to the other Audi a little bit further back, but Nathan Bartley, a little bit more conservative, a little bit more calm, he decides to wait for another lap.
Probably the sensible choice. I mean, turn 6 is not the greatest idea in terms of making a move, I wouldn't say. It's better off to wait for a better chance, I think, rather than jeopardise your entire race. And let's not forget that Bartley has not really been in this situation very much this season. He won't want to, throw this one away. He's had a couple of decent finishes so far, but nothing quite like this. A podium would be by far his best result of the season so far, and he won't want to throw that all away with still more than half an hour to go.
It's a pretty incredible sight. His previous best finish of the season, I said his best qualifying result of the season before tonight was 11th. His previous best finish was 2 weeks ago at Silverstone, where he finished an absolute whopping 10th. He got in the top 10. That's his best result this season. He's fighting with another driver, though, Boris Ovando. It's kind of weird to say because he's had so much speed. He's been fighting for wins multiple times this season, but Boris Ovando has 0 points on the season. 2 DNFs, 2 races where he spun or crashed and didn't get any points, and last week at Daytona, he finally got a couple of points on the board, but it was only 8 points from finishing about 22nd. He also has a 20-point penalty for either running into a driver or switching cars. I don't remember what he got a penalty for, but either way, Boris Ovando is on 0 points right now. The championship's over, but he still wants to have his best possible of an end of the season.
Yeah, might well be switching cars, by the way, that one, for Ovando. But yeah, qualified second at Daytona, so, you know, he had the speed, but just hasn't been able to quite get there and use it in the right way just yet. Now, hopefully, in this race, he is showing us right now, and hopefully he can take it to the line as well. But as we've seen, the pit stop phase can change this race so much. That you know, it would even be naive to say that the top 4 are racing for this win right now. You've got to open it out further down than that because of the way that the traffic and whatever is so important around here. However, I will say, with only 32 healthy cars running right now, that is reduced a little bit compared to we have more than 10 than that this time in the fixed series race. So it's a little bit different, but even so, the traffic is no easier to get past, even if there is less of it.
Thinking about some of those drivers in the secondary train here. Well, we do have this train for first, second, third, and fourth. Dan Krasowski in 5th on back basically has his own train. He's got Connor Wagner right behind him. He's got Martin Crisp right behind him. He's got Crisp teammate Dickinson right behind him. While we do focus on the top 4 train here, there is a whole nother one right behind, and there might be a lot of drivers who kind of want to break down Dan Krasowski and join this train because everybody from 5th on back is running basically equal lap times as Nathan Bartley from 2nd loops it off of the hairpin, does stay out of the wall, managed to save it, but that is such a difficult corner. We've seen it catch out some people in the fixed race, and it's going to catch out Nathan Bartley as well.
He catches out so many, just clipping the rear end of that Porsche on the very last part, the sort of late apex of that hairpin, right at the end of the lap there, turn 11. As we look at a separate replay here of a real mess. Goodness me. That was nearly, oh dear, that was nearly 3 wide into the fountain, and that shows why those battles never work. And this is just a little bit of clumsiness from Nathan Bartley. Unfortunately, it's the rear end of that Porsche clipping the wall and being sent around. Thankfully, wasn't forced into reversing back out into the track and getting going again that way, but he has lost 2 places.
Does luckily still get to rejoin the train, though, so if he is, saving a little bit of fuel, if he was just riding behind Ovando, waiting for the pit stops to come around, it could be worse, because remember, who came from 4th to the lead after the pit cycle in the fixed race? It was Michael Pabiano. Nathan Bartley might be still in a good position here, even with that one mistake.
Yeah, but I feel like Pabiano, now that we look back at it, now with the benefit of hindsight, he was kind of reserving himself a little bit in the first part of that race, really, and not really going crazy. Whereas, well, I'm not saying Bartley has been either, really, but he has been challenging for the lead, and it hasn't been so much of a quiet, smooth run for him, so it's very much possible that he can still jump from 4th to 1st, but he's going to need something clever, and let's not take anything away from Pabiano. It was clever strategy from him to pit at that moment, and it really effectively won him that race.
After 13 and a half minutes of repairs, Nick McLaughlin is finally back on track. He's going for that 75% credit. Josh Spears, after 10 and a half minutes, he's back out on track as well. Ted Lowendick, after 7 and a half minutes of repairs, he's back out on track as well. They're all going for the 75% credit, but also, it's Long Beach. We're only here once a season. There's only 28 minutes left, or there's only 28 minutes of racing left to go. I'm going to take every minute of racing at Long Beach I can get, even if my car is slightly italicized with 13 minutes of repairs.
Yeah, I'm not convinced they're all going to make it there. 8 laps down. Well, wow, that's... I'm
Chase
not sure
Brown in the wall off of turn 5. Sorry, Ewan.
Yeah.
I think he clipped the curb, and I think he got spat into the wall. But too much speed, and he caught another driver with him. I think that was J.R. Williams behind. Nowhere to go for him. Chase Brown, heavily damaged. J.R. Williams, an innocent bystander.
Yeah, it looked like Brown lost it before the curb, actually. I thought he was going to lose it on the curb as well, but it seemed to just on turning there was already going wrong, and then it just kept getting worse, really, towards the barrier. And then, yeah, more suspension damage. Really suspension crusher, this circuit, to be honest, by the looks of what we've seen so far today, and a lot of crabbing cars back to the pit lane. So yeah, repairs hopefully, and they'll be able to get that 1 point maybe for 75%. But yeah, I'm not sure that those that are 8 laps down or more will actually get the 75% or not, because well, it's predicting 35 laps at the minute. And if I do the maths correctly there, well, oh, maybe I've done the maths wrong. Maybe 8 laps will be alright. I don't know. I need to get
It's too late for math. Rule 1: you can't do math past 2 a.m.
Well, apparently not. Yeah. I need to get the calculator out clearly and figure out what 75% of this race is going to be.
8 times 4 is 32, so 75% of 32 would be 8. So that means that 75% of 35 is less than 8. I think.
I did literally say in my head 8 times 4 is 36 minutes ago. That is not true for those at home.
Yeah, it's too late for you. You're not just delirious, you're O'Learious.
Yes, I like that. That's accurate as well, actually. But yeah, it's not something that these guys have to worry about. Safe to say that. I mean, top 3 covered by less than a second and just over 26 minutes to go.
Kind of getting deja vu back here with Modoff and Bartley. They were fighting for the longest time, and now it looks almost identical, just with the cars switched, with Krasowski in the Precision Racing Esports Audi, scraping a little bit off on the wall, and Connor Wagner in the Delta Sport Porsche. This is that second train I mentioned. They've kind of separated themselves. There's a little bit of gap now between Wagner and Crisp. He's pulled about 2.5 seconds. But these two, they want to join that 4-car train. They want to make it a 6-car battle for this win. And they are being successful. With Nathan Bartley's little mistake, he's kind of been a little bit of a tow rope who's put Krasowski back in touch with this train. They've still got about 2 seconds to make up if they want to join up, but 25 minutes to go with pit strategy, with traffic. I don't think you can count anybody out in the top 6.
Yeah, I don't think you can either. I really don't. Especially with the standard of these two drivers as well, of course. Krasowski, after winning last week at Daytona, and Connor Wagner as well, previous championship winner in the PRL, not in GT3, but has won championships. So you can't count anybody out, I don't think, in this portion of the field. Just need lap traffic to really affect this race here at this point. We do have those 4-lap cars, of course, that are going around for points, but we're now sort of getting to that moment where the back of the field is going to get caught pretty soon. Jeff Carollo is the final driver on the lead lap right now. He's less than 10 seconds ahead of the leaders. And from there, it's going to become pretty constant because pit stops are going to start and then people will be all over the place. And that'll be it for the rest of the race now. So if you play it right, then anybody can be in this one. But you do have to be clever. It's not just going to fall into your lap here for the likes of Krasowski and Wagner. They're the ones who have got some time to make up here. They've got to be the ones to make a difference. And I do think it's going to be difficult, really, because wherever you're going to come out, you're going to be in traffic unless you find a stroke of luck.
Speaking about the way that the level of talent in the PRL has expanded, 2 seasons ago, my last season in the PRL F3 series, Connor Wagner was the pro champion in that series. He won 8 out of 10 races that season. Actually, 8 out of 9 races, because he didn't make it to the last round of the season. He already had the championship under wraps, though, so he didn't need to. He won so many races that season, it was completely uncompetitive, and suddenly he finds himself in the best PRL GT3 field ever, and a guy who dominates 8 out of 9 races in a season, the best he can do right now is 6. That is such a high level of competition, and it gets even higher when you look further back. Sean Dickinson and Martin Crisp. Sean Dickinson beat the field by half a second in qualifying at Silverstone and Manicourt, and at Long Beach, suddenly he finds himself on Struggle Street again.
Yeah, it's really bizarre how some drivers suit some circuits and others don't. I mean, sometimes, and I speak to this as experience in my own driving experience as well. Sometimes it's not even tracks you like that you end up being good at. I don't know why, but sometimes tracks that you really like, you're really not very good at. Well, maybe that was me, but yeah, it just turned out that way. And you do get ebbs and flows through a season. Those ones that, of course, stay up there and win championships, the likes of Connor Wagner, who obviously winning so many races that season. Obviously, he's one of those that can just stay consistent, stay good throughout, you know, a season, and that's a quality in itself. But yeah, we do see these ebbs and flows, and Long Beach has really thrown up some of the most that we've seen all season, really, not only in the fixed series but this one as well, which is well, it makes it entertaining for us.
David Mendonca at the head of your screen, currently running third in AM, but he's a very, very lonely third in AM because there's 5 seconds now up the road to Blake Ziti, or actually fourth in AM rather, 5 seconds up the road to third Blake Ziti, a couple more tenths up to Jerome Bertiome as well, who's still holding Ziti back, but Mendonca himself is holding back a little bit of a train. J.R. Williams, Thomas Dunn, and Noah Anderson, the pros, and downtown Gary Brown, he's going downtown. He was part of this train. He was getting held up. He's one of the first drivers to bring it down pit lane legitimately.
And that might well kick off quite a lot of pit stops here from everybody. We'll see where Gary Brown comes out, of course, and if it's in a bit of clean air, then that might start to worry those around them. But I don't think this is going to move any of the leaders overall just yet, but it could just start to make them think, and then it's not going to take very much for somebody just to give it a go, because I don't feel like you're going to, you know, win this race by copying the leader, really, as maybe you would sometimes. Although I say that, Kormodov has got a bit of a chance now to go through.
We haven't really seen mistakes at the hairpin other than that little issue with Rob Campbell getting a little bit of oversteer. We haven't seen people out-braking themselves into the hairpin. So that's a new one for Boris Ovando, and that is the chance that Karl Modov needed. He's not content to stay in line. He's going to try and outbrake Ovando around the outside into turn 1. Not going to happen, though. Has to slot back in line. A little bit of a bobble from Ovando. He's able to hang on for the moment.
He is, and has survived a scare there, really. As you say, you don't see mistakes made there at all, really, through the hairpin. But on that occasion, Ovando did, and Modov wasn't able to quite you know, capitalise on it, unfortunately, and so that they'll stay behind again. But that's just going to heighten the nerves here, really, and it really could start to get someone into the pit lane, as we've seen with the AM leader now as well.
And Kwok Nin from the lead comes in. Noah Anderson as well, a pro driver. Downtown Gary Brown, 12 seconds in the box. Kwok Nin, 14 seconds in the box. So some very, very differing fuel strategies, some very, very differing fuel numbers. I wonder, has downtown Gary Brown underfueled the car, or has Kwok Nin overfueled the car? Remember what happened with Matt Scherf? He overfueled the car. That's what lost him second. Is that what's going to put Jerome Bertiome back in the fight for the win here?
Oh, it's difficult to say, really, who's overfueled and underfueled. We'll obviously know who's underfueled at the end of the race if anybody can't make it. But it's difficult to tell where some of these gaps come from sometimes. But you really do gain and lose a lot of time. So in these pit stop phases, sorry. So yeah, it's very crucial, really. These top 4 have really closed up now as a result of Ovando's mistake a couple of laps ago into the hairpin. Bartley's very much back onto the train now, and Krasowski and Wagner are all within 3 seconds at very almost now in this field. So you know, it's all to play for, really, in the top 6.
Nobody else came down in that lap. I was looking to see if there were any more takers, if anybody was going to go for a cover of Kwok Nin's strategy, but no. You have to imagine, though, there is lap traffic coming up now. Noah Anderson, who has pitted, Jeff Carollo, who hasn't, Gary Brown, who has. That is lap traffic ahead of Boris Ovando and ahead of this whole train. Is anybody going to think, again, about what Michael Pabiano did in the fixed race? Got out of traffic, jumped everybody who was fighting for the lead. If you're the likes of Krasowski or Wagner, you've got a ton of passes to make. You could make them all in the pits.
Well,
there goes Modov.
Yeah, here we go. Modov goes in, and he did very well to disguise that, actually. He didn't make it obvious that he was coming in so that others could react, really. It's quite a dangerous pit lane to get into, really, because of the way you have to go through the walls there. Modov disguised it well, made sure that no one came with him, and so if this strategy works, it's going to work on his own, and he's going to get through to the lead on his own as well. So that's very clever from Modov, and it's really going to set off all kinds of thoughts in this front 6 now.
Dickinson in as well with Karl Modov. So the pit cycle has truly begun now. Past halfway in the race, Boris Ovando again just playing with fire on the outside of turn 5. Every single lap, he is there's not even inches between him and the wall. There's not even millimeters. There is the barest of contact. He's scraping the bright orange or the bright highlighter yellow paint off the side of that car. He is absolutely playing with the limits of Long Beach. That's either worrying for the drivers behind him that they're going to get involved in an incident, or that's a little bit reassuring for drivers behind him because it's more likely they might hit the wall eventually.
Yeah, it's it's a dangerous place, Long Beach, to drive a race car through. We'll see now whether anybody's going to react, and Ovando has to, and so does everybody. Nobody's taking this risk. Maybe it's a little bit of a reaction to the Fix Series race where we saw so much change through the pit stop phase, but or maybe they're just literally out of fuel, but nobody wanted to take that risk.
Interestingly, Connor Wagner, though, going for the cover. He thinks there's enough clean track in front of him that if these guys do end up in traffic, he might be able to junk them. Pucktel as well stays out, the F3 Pro Champion from 2 seasons ago and the F3 AM Championship from 2 seasons ago. They lead the field now. They're going around for one more lap. But here is Karl Modoff, the driver who beat all these guys to the pits 1 lap ago. Has this been a successful strategy? It's 13 seconds in the box for Ovando, 14 for Fonseca, 14 for Bartley, 13 for Krasowski, 13 for Crisp. Here comes Karl Modoff. Where is he going to end up? Everybody's still exiting the pits. Yeah, I think Karl Modoff might have just done this.
I think he has. Inside line at turn 1. Ovando can't cut through. Of course, he's got to go to the end of the red line there, and it's easy for Modoff. He was in the clean air, of course, but also his pit stop time was shorter than everybody else's behind with a 12.7, and so he is through. And very well done once again there from Modoff. The advantage, I guess, that he will have had as well is that in fact he came in onto pit lane on his own as well, which just makes things a little bit calmer for you.
Connor Wagner is in. Ryan Pucktel should follow him in, but I have a theory. I have a hypothesis. With Elliott White running in the middle of the field, he's still been running about a second off the pace from the rest of the field. Is this an Elliott White attempt to go to the end of the race? We'll know right now if he decides to follow Pucktel into the pits, or if Raymond Yip does as well. Yes, he does. Elliott White does come into the pits. Raymond Yip follows him in. Nobody's pulling the Vincent Trepanier this season. Everybody's going to have to make a pit stop. Just a little bit tighter on fuel this year, I guess.
Yeah, maybe it seems, as I said, this race is a little bit longer, and the fuel situation I don't think has changed really in terms of how much they get. So I would have been surprised if anybody could make it. But then again, you never know. As Conor Wagner, well, he's made a good fist of it. And I think he will gain places, but he is in a bit of lap traffic here. And so maybe not, but this lead group now very much split apart, and Komarov has got at least a second's worth of a lead.
Ovando got really scuppered there by the lapped Ferrari. I believe that was Sean Carmody also coming out of the pits. Tried to stay out of the way. Didn't work though. Ovando had to go side by side with him through the fountain section, and that has expanded the gap. Ovando now 1.5 seconds behind Karl Modoff. And there's no traffic for a little while up the road. Next up is William Brennan, I believe, and he is a good couple of seconds up the road. We might see him here. Yep, there he is up in the foreground. Karl Modoff has a little bit of breathing time for the moment. He's got a 1.5 second gap to nurse.
Yeah, and he should be able to manage it, although it's difficult to tell now, given that for the last half an hour, we've seen Modoff trailing Ovando. You know, we knew that Ovando wasn't, loads quicker than Modoff, able to pull away from him, but is Modoff now able to actually action that and maybe use a bit of pace to get away here, or is Ovando going to slowly bring him back here? Remains to be seen over the next few minutes. The next few minutes are going to be very crucial, really. But once again, it might not all matter. Traffic may well be the biggest factor in this race. Once again, because it really did close the lead down once or twice during the Fixed Series race.
I have some tragic news, Ewan. Nathan Bartley has received a pit lane speeding penalty or an unsafe pit exit penalty. Either way, he's been black flagged. The driver who put it on pole, who was having his best race of the season, it's all come undone. Nathan Bartley actually comes to a stop in his box. I thought it was a drive-through, but no, he is coming to a stop. If it's a penalty, it's an even worse penalty than I thought.
Yeah, I don't know why he would come in again because he's been there for a while as well. So I don't know quite why that's happened, unfortunately, but a real shame for him. Pole position and was running well in the race. Could do with a good result as well, because not really had any of them so far this season. but that hunt will go on by the looks of things.
Then there were 5. Modov versus Ovando versus Fonseca versus Wagner versus Krasowski. Nathan Bartley falls. Oh, little bit of argy-bargy, and Fonseca goes around at the hairpin. Was there a little bit of help from Connor Wagner there, or did Fonseca get a little bit greedy with the wall? Let's see. There was a lapped Audi up ahead. Connor Wagner does poke the nose in and turns Fonseca around.
And he got a poor exit as a result as well. We could see Krasowski getting through here into turn 1. Wagner very deep on the brakes. Oh, he's just about pulled it up in time. And there's no space through the fountain. But yeah, Connor Wagner will not be pleased with himself. You wouldn't imagine after all of that pushing Fonseca around. He's going to be slowed up by one of the lap cars here. But yeah, you'd imagine he will be deemed at fault for that one because it was just a bit of a clumsy running into the back of the Lamborghini, really.
That Audi not making too many friends. I'm trying to identify who the bright orange Audi is, but I am struggling to diagnose that car. The number has just been hidden from us, so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't get to name and shame that driver. But Connor Wagner already going to be unhappy with 4X from that contact, but going to be even more unhappy now because the gap up to Ovando, it was about a second. It's now a full 4 seconds between Connor Wagner and have another shot at this win.
I'm going to guess it was Joe McInnes, by the way, but just for information.
I think you're right. I wasn't looking at the AMs. I was looking at the pros for some reason.
Yeah, there we are. Well, yeah, we've got Audis everywhere, to be fair. But yeah, this is going to be the big battle now. You'd feel for 3rd place in this race. Krasowski always so aggressive, always wants an extra position. Not able to into turn number 1. Had to back out into that one for that time, but Connor Wagner will certainly now know he's there and certainly be looking in his mirrors, and I guess the leading battle's not exactly off yet either.
Yeah, that is continuing to come down. Modov versus Ovando. That is still yet to be decided. Also, an update on our championship leader, Elliott White. I mentioned that he came in a little bit later than everybody else. It was not a normal stop for Elliott White. 52.8 seconds. I think he got a pit lane speeding penalty. I think that is an additional time of a penalty. And he currently sits 25th overall right now, fighting for 24th with former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan. Suddenly, the bad day for our championship leader gets even worse, and Karl Modov says, "Thank you very much. I'm back in the championship hunt again."
He absolutely is. And, well, I was going to say could be in the championship lead by the end of this. That's a bit extreme. Well, is it? Well, not.
It's going to be about 3 points in it, I think, but we can't do math again. We're not going to do math again.
Oh, don't make me. Elliott White at the moment would pick up about 6 points, I think, for where he is right now. And Modov at the very least 35, so what's that, 29? And the gap's 26. Oh, that's not to Modov, 27. So, yeah, maybe. But I do feel like, while Modov doesn't have any more positions and points to gain, because he is winning, Elliott White might. He's behind William Brennan at the moment and should be able to gain at least that 1 point. And then, surely there's got to be someone else who retires or has an issue for the remainder of this race.
Who will it be, though? Who's going to be the next mistake in the next 9 minutes? Everybody might be getting a little bit tired right now. It's a short sprint race, but Long Beach is quite a tough track. It is very physical. You're turning basically all the time. You got to be very focused to not hit the walls. Even in a 45-minute race, you do start to get tired about now. You do start looking at that clock thinking, is it over yet? Can I take a rest yet? Especially if you've been one of those drivers who was over at the Rolex 24 over the weekend. You might not be back in fighting shape yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's possibly I'll just take a lot out of you, as we've possibly seen earlier on today with Michael Terrafina, not in terms of doing it, but in terms of being there. These weekends always do take a lot out of you, so maybe. But it's not a very long race. Not one where you'd expect for fatigue to really come into play. If it's at any circuit this season, then it would be this one, I suppose. But even so, these drivers are of a good enough quality to be able to get on with it, I would imagine. It really is a 45-minute sprint in this series, and there's just over 8 minutes to go. And thankfully, we've got most of the cars through this portion of the race. got very few retirements, which are very few confirmed ones anyway, which is very good.
There's been a little bit of argy-bargy, a little bit of silliness, but other than that, it's been a pretty remarkably clean race. As I say that, Jerome Bertiome has crashed from 3rd in class in AM. Daniel Krasowski involved as well. Have the Precision Racing Esports teammates come together? I don't think they have. I think they're 2 separate incidents. That is Jerome, I believe. That's not Krasowski. I think, theoretically, they're driving exactly the same car. And then this is Jerome from... Well, he's already damaged. He's already broken. And also, he's driving an Audi. I thought he was driving a Ferrari. No, Daniel Krasowski's in the Audi.
Yes.
These Precision Racing Esports guys, they're confusing me. They're always switching. But Dan Krasowski in the Audi, already heavily damaged there. Jerome in the Ferrari. Precision Racing Esports falling apart. Me too.
Yeah, it was Krasowski second, certainly. But there was definitely some previous to that. The Krasowski one. 4th place he was at the time. And unfortunately just had to pull off, really. Could go no further. And that's a real shame. May well put to bed any hope that he had of a championship challenge in this one, really. Because that is going to drop him down quite a long way in the standings here for the race today. It could even see him out the points. So that's a real disappointment for him. And I think... yeah, that might well be his chances over, really. But it's certainly on between Elliot White and Komodov at this stage. It looks like it's going to be between those two that we're really looking at for a championship fight for the rest of this season.
SimCity Racing and these 2 Lamborghinis, Crispin Dickinson, haven't shown the race-winning pace that they've had in previous weeks this week. But you know what they've done that a lot of drivers haven't? They haven't crashed. They've kept it between the lines. They haven't hit each other. They haven't got into the walls. And as always with these 2 drivers, they're going to get rewarded for their consistency and for their safety. Both drivers now in the top 5.
Yeah, and this is what tends to happen, really, with SimCity Racing. I've noticed this in all championships, whether they're racing as a team in a longer race or on their own, they find themselves in nice positions almost, naturally, as Fonseca's finding himself into all sorts of trouble. And this is exactly the problem with that hairpin at times as well. It's just... it gets too busy sometimes, and we very nearly had another jam up there.
And Fonseca's got reason to be aggressive, because remember, he would have been on the podium overall here. He was having the best race of his PRL career before Connor Wagner dumped him around. So he is racing with a fire under his seat. He's currently racing with a lot of drivers who are trying to fight for an AM podium, though. Blake Ziti was behind him there, had to kind of back out there to preserve himself. Next up for Fonseca is another Pro Espinoza. Then after that, though, is the AM leader Kwok Nin. Every position pays points. AMs do get to fight with pros. They're encouraged to fight with pros to keep those points. But it's going to be hard to fight with Fonseca as he passes Espinoza, or tries to, around the outside. Doesn't work, though.
Long way around there, and the wall was there to grab you. And he's even under pressure from another one of the Ferraris behind, so he's going to have to just deal with that through turn 8 there. But just proving to be so difficult to overtake here, even when Fonseca, who knows he is quicker than those around him right now, with no disrespect to Andres Espinoza at all, he does know that he is quicker. He wants to be back inside that top 10 again, but is just struggling to find a way through again. It's not going to be at the hairpin, where he's, of course, seen his race unravel earlier on. But the exit just not good enough off there. It's not going to be into turn 1 either.
A little bit of a shake from Fonseca off the hairpin. Little shake, a little tingle. Kills his run down the front straight. He's going to have to wait for basically another whole lap to get another shot. But Karl Modov, never mind. False alarm. I thought he made a mistake. That was just his internet. He still has a 1-second lead over Ovando. But internet issues aside, little blinks aside, he does have issues up the road because William Brennan and Elliot White, they're both going to be lap traffic very soon. Karl Modov does not have clean track ahead of him. Boris Ovando is very thankful that he sees a couple of little picks up there.
Yeah, certainly does. There's 3 laps to go now, just as they go over the line. And so it's, they're going to catch those 2 lap cars before the end of this one. And Boris Ovando has not been able to, or has not let Karl Modov go at all, really, in this race. So we really could see a leading battle here, but you do once again question, even if Ovando gets right to the back of Modov, where is he going to make this move around this circuit? Oh.
Well, that's an easy move there. That was Nick McLaughlin, who was already a lap down, I believe. Yeah, that was
10 laps down.
Yeah, 10 laps down. It's gotten a little worse for him. Maybe he was slightly distracted. He's 10 laps down. He's just doing a track day at this point, but that is one way to get yourself out of the way of the leaders. That's one way to open up the door.
Yeah, he really is doing a track day at this point, by the way, McLaughlin, because he's not getting any points, and I really do know the maths on that one, because my 10 times table is a lot sharper. You'll be glad to know. But anyway, he's just driving for a bit of fun, you'd imagine. Karl Modov is concerning me a little bit, I've got to be honest. With
that's
the
even more
internet.
concerning.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Surely not.
This has happened a couple of times. Karl Modov has scared us. He's come back eventually, but he's falling down the order. This is a lot of seconds to be out. I've seen some drivers come back from blinks like this, but I think Karl Modov's internet might be mowed off.
Oh dear. And all of a sudden, the complexion of this race, the complexion of this championship quite possibly changing before our eyes because of internet. Literally 2 minutes before the end of this race, just at the end of the season where you really don't need it as well, where the championship battle's really starting to heat up. We were speaking about him maybe taking the lead as well. Yeah, he's out. We were speaking about him maybe taking the championship lead at the end of today, but that's not going to happen anymore. It's all down to Elliott White, and I guess we've got to count back in is Sean Dickinson, despite the fact we've barely talked about him all day. He's still in the top 5. He's in 4th now, and he's gaining points on Elliott White no end here today.
And I don't know if there's going to be any team orders, if there's going to be any racing on the final lap between Crisp and Dickinson, but somehow I am dumbfounded. Everything has come up Sean Dickinson. Everything's kind of come up Elliott White as well. He's had the worst race of his season. He's had a terrible day, and somehow his rival gets disconnected. Ignore Jeff Carollo in the foreground there. He's having his own fun. Krasowski crashes. All of his rivals run into trouble, and suddenly everything's even again. But Boris Ovando has been gifted the race lead. He gets to take the white flag with a 7-second lead over Connor Wagner, and hopefully no acts of Deus Ex Machina take Boris Ovando out of the lead.
Hopefully not. I think he would have been hoping, though, that the last 15 minutes would have been like these last two or three, really, because this would be a lot more relaxed than what he would have been with Karl Modov just in front of him. That's a real shame, really, because we could have seen a real great fight between those two for the win there. And it's a real shame for Karl Modov as well. We put in a great race, and all of a sudden he's going to have almost nothing to show for it. He is going to finish maybe he's going to finish inside the top 30. He's going to be 26th, and he's going to get 5 points for it. But it's a real shame for him. He's going to lose points to Elliott White again on the day, it's all played into the hands of this man.
Boris Ovando, 0 points on the season so far, has shown so much speed, has qualified so well, just couldn't get the deal done. But today, he had a great start, he kept Karl Modov under pressure, and the internet gods have shined on him, but it's a win all the same. It's a standing ovation for Boris Ovando. Finally victorious, his first win in the PRL. Connor Wagner's going to come home eventually in P2, about 5.5 seconds down the road. Martin Crisp and Sean Dickinson for SimCity Racing, they're going to be the happiest team in the world as bad luck strikes all of their rivals. SimCity Racing is going to get a pretty big points haul here as Kwok Nin, he's had a pretty calm race to himself in the AM class. He's found packets of calm in the field somehow, an absolutely impossible task, but he's going to round the hairpin in his Lamborghini, and Kwok Nin going to get another win in the AM class in the GT3s in the Lamborghini. Kwok Nin wins at Long Beach.
Yeah, big points haul as well for the AM drivers, which is really important. Kwok Nin almost getting himself into a championship conversation in the space of 2 rounds. Really great result at Daytona and this race as well. And despite having basically no points in the first half of the season, he's right up there now. This is all what happened on the final lap with Miguel Angel Fonseca, who really has been through it today.
And that was Blake Ziti who got checked up there. Blake Ziti loses the podium on the final lap in that little kerfuffle. David Mendonca ends up on the podium, and 3rd place in AM. It was the driver who came down pit lane before anybody else. Downtown Gary Brown gets paid off for P3. But Boris Ovando wins for the first time in the PRL ahead of Connor Wagner and Martin Crisp. Sean Dickinson probably the best driver in the championship today with that P4. Ethan Osowski, a good top 5 for him. We're ahead of Ryan Pucktel. Raymond Yip, again, just didn't say his name once in the race, ran his own race, still finished 7th for his efforts. Kwok Nin wins an AM, finishes 8th overall, and then SRT 9 and 10 with Espinoza and Caleb Lehman. P11 went to our second place finisher in AM, David Mendonca, J.R. Williams and Thomas Dunn between him, and downtown Gary Brown on the podium in AM, ahead of Noah Anderson. Blake Zede, so close to being on the podium, so close to the win, but Miguel Angel Fonseca had other ideas, unfortunately after getting punted around by Connor Wagner himself. David Lamont, Turner Schroll, and Jennifer McDonald bring us down to P20. Elliott White should still have the championship lead after tonight. Lucky for him, a lot of his rivals had even worse luck. Former Supreme Court Justice William Brennan goes 1 lap down alongside Jeremy Gonsalves and David Morse as well. Jeff Carollo had a little bit of trouble. Carl Modoff's internet said, "You are not winning this race, Carl." He finishes 3 laps down when he should have won. Daniel Krasowski, though, he had his own problems. He crashed out of 27th. Jerome Bertiome as well could have been on the podium in AM. Had a little bit of an oopsie in the Ferrari. He finishes 6 laps down with Sean McInnes and Ted Lowendick for Team Tedline. Nicholas Larson 8 laps down. Nick McLaughlin 10 laps down. He's not going to get credit for his efforts, as is anybody down here in the used car lot. Nathan Bartley put it on pole. Josh Spears, Chase Brown, Sean Carmody, Gonzalo Cortez, and last but not least, Roman Foe didn't actually get on the grid, so he will not get any points for this race. 37 cars in the field tonight, all headed by Boris Ovando, who is here with us. Boris, it's your first win in the PRL. Some unfortunate circumstances for the driver you were racing, but talk us through those final couple laps.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's been a very down season for me. Pretty much crashed out of every race or disconnected, and although I've been competitive in terms of lap time, but just haven't been able to sew it together. But finally this race, unfortunate for Carl, but hey, those things do happen and I'll take it.
So were you looking to Long Beach specifically as a place where you'd be successful? Because these street circuits, they absolutely shake up the field, and it seemed like you had this place under your grasp. You were playing with the limits, you were scraping the walls, but it seemed like you had it under control.
And those walls are so scary in this track. Honestly, I don't have much experience with it, but I put in some practice time, more than I usually do. I was able to get the result, so practice does pay off.
Well, congrats on the first win in the series, Boris, and we'll see you for the last 3 weeks of the season. See if you can keep the momentum up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Boris Ovando, your victor for the first time. Always good to have a first-time winner in the booth. We've got second place Connor Wagner. No, we don't, but we've got third place Martin Crisp with Ewan O'Leary.
Martin, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. Third place, picking up the pieces after Komodov unfortunately disconnected in those final few moments, but on the podium after a fairly calm race, or it seemed it from our point of view. Was it calm as a driver or not?
I don't know if you can call Long Beach ever calm, but I really hate this track. But yeah, it was okay. It was a decent race. I had intended to let Sean by at the end, but he ran out of gas on the last straightaway because for the points. But yeah, it is what it is. But we had a good battle. I kind of lost some pace in the second half, and I think I was holding Sean and everybody up. But it was good fun. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, it was good fun to watch as well. You mentioned that you don't really like Long Beach. What about Interlagos? We're heading there next week. What do you feel about that circuit?
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit more than Long Beach. Long Beach is definitely on the lower end of my tracks that I like, but Interlagos is pretty fun. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it can be good, but it's at least a track you can pass at here. It's really next to impossible.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you, and hopefully we'll see you put in another good performance there. Martin, congratulations on third place here today at Long Beach, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Martin Crisp with Ewan, or as I would call him, Martin Chip. But we do have our AM winner here. Kwok Nin is here with us. Kwok, another win, P8 overall, even more importantly. Somehow, in a race with all this chaos and drama, you seem to have a pretty quiet race at least.
Yeah, it was quiet, but it was also intense too, because I kept looking in the back of my mirrors, and every time I did, there was always somebody right there behind me. So I mean, it was still a bumpy race for me.
So that's 2 wins in AM in a row. I'm doing the points calculations in my head. I think your championship rivals finished quite a few spots behind you. I think this might put you in the championship lead coming into these final 3 races of the season. How are you feeling momentum-wise?
I'm feeling pretty good. I didn't think that, I wasn't really fighting for the championship, but with the way the points are structured this season, I figured that I might as well just try it out and see where it gets me. And then after the race, seeing me climb up the AM championship was pretty cool. So I might as well just stick with the season and then just try to practice and finish P1 in the championship.
For those who don't know at home, 2022 Season 1, Kwok Nin was your AM championship. Your AM champion, rather. Could it be 2023 Season 1 as well? Congrats on the win tonight. Good luck in the next 3 weeks of the season, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the broadcast. See you next time.
Always a pleasure indeed. Kwok Nin, could he be going for championship number 2? And last but not least, it's a driver who, again, pulled off some excellent strategy. Downtown Gary Brown's with Ewan.
Yeah, Gary, top 3 again here at Long Beach in the AM category. Back in the pack very much for you here today. Very different for the pro drivers who race on their own a little bit. You were very much back in the pack. How is it at Long Beach in with everybody, through these opening moments and through the race as well?
It's very nerve-wracking. Yeah, it's like you're on edge the whole time, just trying to make sure you don't run into the guy in front of you. And yeah, it's crazy. It's a tough track for sure.
We've seen at the front of the field, both in both races tonight, actually, in the sprint and fix series, that the pit stops have been very, very crucial to the outcome of the overall race. Were they, a big factor in your preparation and a big moment of the kind of race for you in this one? Bigger than normal, or just as they are through the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, absolutely. This time I watched the earlier race and saw the same thing, that the driver who pitted early there was able to jump some spots. I felt like I was being held up by that pack, and so I rolled the dice to see if I could pit and then come out with some clean track in front of me, and it absolutely worked out for me. I came out with nothing but track in front of me, so it was nice to get some laps with nobody around to get my times back down to where they should be, and I obviously it panned out for me.
Yeah, it certainly did. Nice to see you on the podium again, Gary. Congratulations on 3rd place here in AM, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
I will certainly try my best. Of course, we shouldn't be surprised that downtown Gary Brown used downtown to his advantage, and again gets on the podium for, I believe, the first time in AM this season. I gotta check the stats again here, but yeah, one of his best races of the season in AM easily. And that's about it for us tonight from Long Beach. A ton of action, a ton of drama, a new winner in the PRL with Boris Ovando, Michael Pabiano back on top as well in the fixed series. But next week, same time, same place. We're ready to do it all again at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. I'm not going to do that again. Interlagos, as we call it. We will go there for some GT3 racing, Brazilian style, next week. Same Tuesday night as always. But this is not the only night of PRL action on RaceSpotTV. Of course, there is the Tuesday night GT3 doubleheader. There's also NASCAR Xfinity and NASCAR Trucks on Wednesdays. There's the IRO4s and F3 on Thursdays. There's the PRL NASCAR Cup Series on Sundays. And there's GR86s and GT4 action on Monday. So we hope you'll join us for any or all of them. I've been Joey Tebben. Ewan O'Leary's been Ewan O'Leary. Our producer has been Hugo Luis. Till we see you next time. So long.